Alright, so before too long, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get that debate. I'll be debating uh, Weeaboo Warrior. Maybe some of you guys have heard of him. We'll be talking about Yusuke versus Naruto. Of course, I'll be repping Yusuke. He'll be repping Naruto. And we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, Hopefully, everything ends up being very civil. I'm almost certain that it will be. I think most of our disagreements probably come down to understandings of AP versus DC or certain statement based things. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. I'll just kind of cover beforehand just as past some of the time. But yeah, so here's like reasons why I think Yusuke wins is that he has far faster movement speed, extremely higher attack potency, extremely higher durability, and honestly, his aura alone is likely to one-shot Naruto, let alone the clones, and the AoE would be unavoidable. As we've seen that his aura can casually cover all the way up to the sky, Okuman tree-sized battlefields. I do go into attack potency here because I think that's going to be one of the main things. And I also, I can just find this here. And so this is something else I'll be showing is talking about AP versus DC, of course. Got this big ol' ball. This will be an attack. We have our little human here. Total force equals 10,000. Size, we'll just say, is 100 meters cubed. Big amount of space. This little human person, they're super awesome. They have a durability that would require 10,000 per meters cubed of energy to kill them. They are the size of 1 meter cubed. They're tiny. Would this attack even hurt him? That's basically a question that I'll be asking because this is what the AP would actually look like. Which in the world just happened? Why did I bring up a photo of that? There we go. So like total force is 10,000. What in the world is it? What? Is that on a timer thing? Anyways, real quick, all the 50s would apply to like the total force of the 10,000. That's what we would be expecting. So, just as an example, when it's a total force of 10,000, each, meter cubed in this example might be, it was just random numbers, like a 50. And it takes 10,000 per meter cubed to even hurt this little guy. 50 isn't even close to 10,000. So we'll see how he responds to that. And hopefully it ends up being good. Let's see, I should be ready soon. So I guess they're still waiting. Well, not too much more to say, but I guess I'll jump ahead to when it begins.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Alright, well, I mean, to begin with, because this is pretty formal, at least in my opinion, we could either do like openings or we could just kind of cover kind of just point by point.
Yeah, we could do just like a quick opening and say like what our position is, and then we could do like point by point, like we could talk power, speed, potency, abilities, whatever.
Okay. You want to start or me?
I'll start real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So I think Naruto could beat Yusuke because he's shown better feats all around, better power, better speed. He has better abilities. I don't think he'll be able to prove that Yusuke has the necessary tools to defeat Naruto. And that about sums up my opening.
Well, Yusuke is kind of a pseudo brick character, so almost exactly what you said, but mirrored. I think Yusuke landslides in potency and durability. I'm also quite confident that he outspeeds, but I think potency alone and his aura would be potent enough to probably at least take care of all of his clones, if not Naruto himself. And I think he can potentially just wipe with aura.
Okay, so when it comes to raw power, I think Naruto has the edge, obviously, because he does have flashier feats than Yusuke. I think we could both agree to that. But I like how... what was that?
I agree, they're definitely flashier.
Yeah. So, obviously, his flashiest feat is probably when he blocked the attack that could cut through the moon.
Yep.
And then there's also how Naruto and Sasuke together basically created a moon. Though you could argue it's only because the Sage of the Six Paths granted them his power, but together they were considered to rival his power anyways, so they should have power that rivals that. And people did scaling and pixel scaling and showed that it should be about the size of our moon, which I don't think is really necessary because that same technique literally created the original moon in the first place, so I think it's pretty reasonable to say it's about moon size. Oof. And then we also have the Ten Tails itself, whose chakra was compared to the planet itself, and how it could create massive tailed beast bombs casually that were about, I would say, small country sized in power, or you could argue a large island or something like that, but it's definitely a lot of power from the Ten Tails. And there's another feat, hold on, right here, of it showing its destructive capability across the planet. And Obito, after absorbing the Ten Tails, became even stronger than that.
Yep.
And then Naruto was even stronger than him. So Naruto does scale to all the power feats from the Ten Tails.
I agree.
Okay. So, would you like to talk about how powerful you think Yusuke is?
Yeah, I think that Yusuke gets to bare minimum planetary plus, even up to large planetary. Generally, what it comes down to is scaling and a difference of DC and AP, which of course we're going to have to talk about, because I think pretty much all your feats there are high DC and not nearly the AP. Let's see, though. So, we have, of course, I'm just going to bring up the feat you've seen plenty of times, Sensui's Beheaded Hill feat. But we have, let's see if I can get more here. We have Okumin trees that are absolutely massive. We have, here we can see Okumin trees absolutely towered immensely over mountains. I'll address it now because it's of course quick, is that there are Okumin trees that are probably in height, if it was on the plateau next to the mountains, in height, probably about equal to the mountains. That'll be addressed in the future. And we can see the size of Beheaded Hill. I don't know why that became a spoiler. We have the size of Beheaded Hill compared to Okumin trees. Okumin trees already are at least like island sized if you're going off of your general amount of like what's on them. Entire rivers and forests and savannas and plains and mountains. Beheaded Hill comes out to about the size of a small to medium-sized country. And Sensui, man, I have a broken mouse. Sensui, of course, busts it with the air pressure of a casual punch. Let's see. Beheaded Hill. What's it doing? I wish I was better with all this. And yeah, let's see. We'll just use this picture. He busts it, and you can see ultimately that all of it gets destroyed. In fact, it is pulverized into dust. If you want to, at the last scan, it's you can click on it and zoom in. Those are not clouds. It has been turned to dust. You can look at the formation of the rocks and how the dust is laid in between each rock. It's impossible for the rocks to appear the way they do. If they were clouds, it would overlap on top of them. And then, of course, since we scales, this would require a lot more, so I won't go too much into it right now. Since we scale, use case scales like thousands of times in potency above Sensui. So Sensui has pretty much baseline multi-continental and AP feat, and Yusuke is like thousands of times more potent than him in scaling.
Okay. So I'm obviously going to bring up the different sized Okumin trees. And here I circled the difference with how some of them are tiny compared to the others.
Yep.
And then also, I know you probably don't want to bring it up because, of course, the anime shows some of them are barely larger than human size.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about the anime.
Yeah. And then also this scan shows they don't look, these ones particularly are smaller than the mountains surrounding them, and they don't look much taller than the trees around them either. And hold on. Here we go. As we can see here, the trees around them are normal sized trees, if not actually on the small side for trees. So I would say there's definitely a big varying in size between these things. So to try to scale up as far as you are is a bit dubious in my opinion. And I have also a couple questions about what you said. You said destroying that structure automatically puts them like Continental or Continental Plus, so I would like to know where you're getting that, and I would also like to get where you're getting that Yusuke is thousands of times more powerful than him or more important than him.
Yeah, I was trying to mostly save time, but I can cover all that. So, first with the Okumin tree size. So, with the what you put there, we have that scan, skip anime, and your second scan here, to where we can't actually get a clear view, we don't know our vantage point here. That's a little weird. The easiest...
So we don't really need to know the vantage point because we can see the Okumin trees in front of the trees in the background, which means the trees in the background should look even smaller compared to it. Yet we can see that they're a good fraction of their height. And the mountains in the background look bigger as well, and they are also behind.
Let me show you. So you have the last scan there, size of some trees. Of normal size trees. Let's see. That's not the one I want. Shoot, what's it called? I have too many scans, so I'm gotta remember which ones I'm looking for.
Yeah, I have a lot too.
Not Okumin trees. Just look up Demon World. Gosh dang, it's not this one either. What would I have called it? Fortress? There we go. Okay, so just addressing the size of trees real quick. I guess I put it in reverse order. The bottom one here is the mobile centipede fortress of Makuro. They're on the forehead of it, and you can barely see it. You can also see in the top panel here that it doesn't even tower over the normal trees. You can see the other scans where, again, it confirms that they're on the very top of it. And the first scan, since it's in reverse order, once again, you can see that it's not towering over trees. Now, as your scan shows, there are other trees that are not that tall. But to say that it's definitely these trees, right? It could be, what we would be looking for is what is most accurate and most consistent. The trees in Demon World
are from that fight specifically, from that area.
That's true. He also got knocked over the horizon, which is any given amount of distance away. Do I need to show the scan of him being knocked over an entire horizon's distance?
I think I have that one too. Hold on. Which I want to bring up because Kuwabara said that no one could survive that, implying an attack like that should defeat someone of Sensui's level.
What, the one that knocked him over the horizon?
Isn't like a continental feat or anything.
Wait, what's not continental?
Being blasted to the horizon like that.
What?
Based off of visuals, which is what Kuwabara is going off of.
Kuwabara is like the best sensing, like, energy-wise person in the series, and it would be potency that does it. Like, a bullet's not going to knock you almost anywheres. It'll still kill you. Like, it carrying you is just extra.
Yeah, I mean, it's just presented in a way that's clearly, like, it's showing off the power of it visually.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and all the trees seem to be normal sized.
I mean, what, from their aerial view there? From an unknown distance high?
Well, from the bottom part you posted, you could see their normal size, and also there's no, like, clear indication that trees are getting taller or shorter anywhere along that giant line.
Let's see.
And also going back to the scans you posted before with that bug thing going through, I mean, it looks like there's just a giant, like, dust storm it's creating. Honestly, you can't really see much of what's going on with there in its comparison to the trees.
No. It would, the fact that it's, like, nearing, like, Susanoo height in terms of, like, where they scale to, like, their size compared to it, and it's not towering over every tree to, like, insane.
How do you know it's nearing Susanoo height? I mean, they're on top of its head, but they could just be far enough back to where you can't see them in that scan.
Because they're
I think you're trying to imply that they're so small you can't see them on the top of its head, but like from that angle you just might not be able to see them.
Let's see. Hold on. You know, I will partially I might concede that. Because I might be mixing up anime. Their signal thing, the little Bryu thing, I remember that being, like, on the very, like, just above where it would be, where I'm thinking they would be. But technically the manga doesn't show that. Okay, so I'll agree that, we have the scans you're showing here, where since we ended up, you have trees, and it looks like the tree area where the fight took place, a lot of the trees are even potentially smaller sized trees. So, okay, well then let's compare to what is most consistent and most accurate still. So you have one where the very first one where you highlighted the small ones are at least the size of mountains in terms of height, not total volume or mass. That would be also towering way above, like, what's shown. Secondarily, your second one, I would agree that that one looks, that one's not so good. But then we have to compare it to every other Okumen tree ever shown throughout the entire series, throughout the whole thing after that. So we have, in your very scan, the big ones. They also are the ones that are clustered in 3. If we're trying to be as accurate as possible, what we would be looking for to compare to the size of Beheaded Hill would be, if at all possible, perhaps it's not possible, but in this case it is, we can have 3 Okumen trees that are next to each other. It's more accurate to look for a group of 3 Oakman trees than not if we were to say that it's the big ones. And lo and behold, it is. Also in the top left corner, very hard to see on this scan with the beheaded hill compared to the size of Oakman trees. Top left corner, you can see 3 Oakman trees as well. We see 0 Oakman trees that are by themselves. That doesn't mean it's necessarily true that it's the bigger ones, but it's, aside from being a preponderance of evidence, that would be what is more accurate. Then, you have, every time the Oakman trees are actually focused on, they're the focus of the actual story, and Togashi actually puts in some artwork, they house mountains. They're not just like barely the size of a mountain, like they're massive superstructures that carry mountains every single time, like anytime they're the focal point. And it's every single one of them after this, in both the other scans there. And then, those were for the preliminary rounds. Then we get the, let's see. Then we get massive, whoops. Demon World is massive. Shoot. Tournament. I can't even see if this is it. Size of Oakman trees. Demon Tournament. No. Shoot. I'll just explain it while I'm looking for it. I'm looking for the their Demon World Tournament part. Actual like arenas, which are also like based on Oakman trees. That, like the Oakman trees, is supposed to house where they're fighting on the tournament, just as they did in the preliminary rounds. Being based on the Oakman trees, those 2 also, of course, carry entire ecosystems, multiple ecosystems. Savannas, no less, which can take up portions of an entire country. In terms of, like, everybody wanting their opinion to be as accurate and consistent as possible, which should be everyone's goal, I think it's far, far more accurate and consistent throughout every showing of them that Beheaded Hill scales to the large ones. Let's see.
Well, I think we could just agree to disagree on that one, because I think, like, they're Oakman trees, and I believe it's stated they do grow, so obviously they have to start from saplings and go all the way to that size, so there should be varying size all the way. And of course the tournament ones are the large ones, which is a later arc than this one, because they're not going to fight on small ones, they're going to fight on big ones, and they're going to go to an area with a bunch of them. But even if we do accept all of them are that size, I mean, just to have a mountain which can vary in size hugely, and the mountain takes off a good chunk of it, just like visually, like they would still be at best like small island sized, or even just large mountain sized, honestly. Like, if you look at something like an island like Hawaii from space, it looks completely like massive compared to it. And that's the small island of Hawaii, I believe. And here's the large island of Hawaii and what that looks like from a range, which also both look much bigger than Beheaded Hill when you look at them far out, which you compare to like a good sized country. And here's what a country looks like. This is a small country, Sicily and Italy, what that looks like from space, which clearly, like, you can't even see the tree specks at all. Like, the visuals is on a completely different level than from what we see at Beheaded Hill. And if we look at the scan you posted with, hold on a second. Here it is.
Jesus, I wish I could.
We could look at what the mountains look like compared to the Oakman trees and plateaus around it. Now here is a scan of what Nagato did when he fought Naruto. He ripped this massive chunk of earth out of the ground, which completely dwarfs the mountains around it. And I would say the mountains are looking at a similar size in comparison, like, via, like, comparing the 2 sizes of the pictures. They're both pretty small in comparison. Like, this thing would be, like, it would definitely have more mass than these Oakman trees if their mountains are similar sized. And this version of Nagato is, like, extremely, like, fodder to current Naruto.
Well,
and then
I
we
would
also have Sasuke's meteor fragments that he cut up, which I'll probably bring up later in the potency argument. But these like just the chunks that he chopped up are like completely dwarfing these mountains, like that are even tinier in comparison to the scans you showed. So each one of those meteors that Naruto ends up like completely destroying and Naruto or Sasuke chops up like butter would be like comparable in size to Beheaded Hill. Like honestly, if we took the mid or arguably the highball estimate of those trees.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this goes into AP versus DC. I think that if both of those feats you just put were to have been accomplished by the air pressure from an attack the size of a human fist, that Naruto would scale massively above where I have them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get into my potency argument later.
But real quick, so you would... this is an interesting thing. Do you just take that the mountains that you're seeing in Naruto there are the size, like, based on, like, how we have mountains in real life?
I think that's debatable, but if we're going to do it for the mountains you're showing, we have to do it for the ones Naruto's showing. We either do it for neither or both, just to be fair.
No, I agree. Do you think it's more consistent or accurate to, like, what basis would you take? Just in your opinion, I'm curious. Do you think it's better to do it for neither or better to do it for both?
I would say if there's nothing directly contradicting their size, we should assume by visuals they are like around mountainish size. You could argue like, oh, maybe they're a little on the small side, but like, so, I think we should consider that they are about mountainish size. I think that's fair.
Unless shown otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay, so, of course, alright, if remember that the final battlefields that are based on the Okuma trees have entire plains in them. This would be like the Great Plains, which is by far not even close to the biggest one. And this is like the amount of space it takes up. So what I would say, and this isn't an actual like full argument, this would be something like, on what basis would you say that they're not the size that they could even be country sized, like the Okuma trees alone?
Well, yeah, savannas could be of any size, but I mean, there was a mountain, a lake, and a desert, I believe what is stated, and they're all of similar size on there. They're different ecosystems, and they're all comparable to the mountain in size. Like, you could see what the trees look like, and visually, like, you can't watch, like, a country, like, a battlefield on a country. It's obviously not that sized. Like, it just wouldn't make sense visually.
Here we go. Well, that's why, so the reason why it is important is because we're talking about fiction, and anything could be the size of anything. We have, of course, especially if you're going to be talking about demon world, extra mythical place within a, fiction that's, if it's based on real world things. If you're going to say, for example, these mountains are probably best taken as mountain level unless contradicted in some way. Okay, fine. But then you have what has an entire lake, a desert, a plains, a jungle, mountain, in a demon world area. Pretty much like, how do you say that the plains wouldn't be that size? How would you say that the desert isn't?
Plains just mean grasslands. It's just areas of grass. That's what it means.
And
like, you can have grasslands or fields of any size. Like, there's not like the Great Plains of the United States is just long stretches of giant plains, but like, you could have an island with plains on it. You could have an island with a desert on it. Like,
I'm pretty sure we have like a full list of like what we denote as like your general idea of like, here's plains like throughout the world. And like the Great Plains again aren't even close to the biggest.
Yeah, I'm not saying they aren't, but there's probably tiny ones as well. Unless there's like the definition of plains has to be a certain size. Like with mountains, like mountains have a definition of how big you have to be to be a mountain. As far as I'm aware, there's no definition of plains needing a certain size.
The smallest plain landform in the world can be found in North America. It is called the Great Plains. I mean, let's see. Plain, any relatively level area of the Earth's surface exhibiting gentle slopes and small local relief. Plains vary widely in size. The smallest, let's see, maybe here. don't continue to cite. Okay, let's see. The smallest occupy only a few hectares, whereas the largest covers hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. For example, the Great Plains of North America. In the expansive, gently undulating land that sweeps from Pyrenees Range on the French-Spanish border across northern Europe and Asia, almost halfway around the world, nearly to Bering Sea.
I mean, either way, that just seems like such a big stretch of like, and I doubt it's anything to do with author's intent. I doubt he was like, oh well, yeah, this is a plain, so this is how big I think this is gonna be. I mean, it's definitely a big ass tree, but it has a mountain, it has a forest, it has a lake, it has a desert, it has plains. Like, there's supposed to be different areas where they could fight on. Like, they're different terrain. I don't think they were meant to show.
I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to actually argue that the Oakman trees would actually be country level. All I'm trying to show is that it is vastly more likely that Beheaded Hill scales much closer to like a country in size. That you have pretty much one, maybe the two scans that can somewhat question the size, whereas every other showing of what an Oakman tree is in size vastly leans into the favor of it being more in line with the size I'm saying. It's more of a preponderance of evidence. I don't actually argue for like country-sized Oakman trees. I would argue for country-sized Beheaded Hill.
Okay, but I mean, even the Oakman trees in that area, none of them had visual mountains or lakes or plains on them. So I'm not sure if that's relevant in this case. But I mean, those bigger ones in the scan are clearly bigger than the mountains around them. So I would say they're at least large-ish mountain level in width. And then the Beheaded Hill does dwarf them. So I would argue, if you go off the Oakman argument and visuals, you could easily argue a good-sized island. But like, just I think country level is going too far. But even if you did go country level, I would still say Naruto wins. It would just be much closer.
Maybe we should delve into APDC then, because I think AP and DC is being conflated here, and we'll see.
Yeah, okay. I just have a couple last things to show for power, and then we could move right into potency right there.
Sure.
What was that?
I said sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There was, of course, Kaguya and her expansive truth-seeking orb that was literally gonna wipe out her time-space dimension and create a new one.
Oh.
And I think I know you probably might have expected I would bring that up. And then let's see, it should be somewhere around here. Then we have a later scene. We know there's a planet in her dimensions, and we could also see there's moons and a sun. So there's plenty of people who highball Kaguya to solar system level, which I'm not going to do, but I'm just saying if we want to go, there's nothing really that says that it couldn't be, and we know that she's going to destroy time-space dimensions that do have planets, suns, and moons in them. So unless you want to bring a direct counter argument to that, like, I'm not going to specifically argue that, because one, I don't believe she's that powerful or Naruto's that powerful, and I don't think I need to, but I think you're highballing the Beheaded Hill a lot, so if we want to go with highballs, I could theoretically go this direction.
Oh no, I actually am looking at the actual sizes of things and going off of how they're portrayed consistently and going from there. Now we can disagree on whatever's more likely, but what this is purely you're taking a Black Zetsu statement about something that never happened and applying it as truth. It's a statement.
Well, I believe the guidebook statement also says it was going to happen, but...
I mean, okay. But,
that's why I'm not going to argue that. I'm just saying...
I mean...
Technically, by statements...
By statements, Sensui could destroy the Ningen Kai by 50% of his power just powering up. By statements... By statements, basic boxer, normal, Hajime, no Ippo, can punch at the speed of light. I mean, by statements, shoot, I know I could find it somewhere. You know what? Here, by statements, this normal kid at the beginning of Yu Yu Hakusho, He's a bully, and he's a million times more powerful than this other normal kid. And there's nothing that contradicts it. He beats him up.
And you have to be able to decipher between hyperbole
correct.
statements, which I don't think Black Zetsu's was supposed to be. But like I said, I think obviously going solar system level is way too far.
Well, what would you... I'm sure, again, this isn't APDC, but just... I mean, we could nip this easily, I think. I agree that you need to decipher what's hyperbole or not. How's the best way to do that? Because I know I use feats and scaling to determine what is or isn't hyperbole. What do you use?
Yeah, I would agree. Feats and scaling, and I would say like author's intent, guidebook statements that back it up.
Oh, I mean, I feel I could easily back up with... Let me say, I disagree with author's intent. I believe in death of the author as the superior means of... I think author's intent is great for storytelling and, like, foreshadowing and character development. All of that's awesome, but I don't think that actually plays a role in power scaling. Whenever we do calcs, we're calcing what, like, what the feat shows, not what the author intended it to be. I don't think power scaling inherently as a thing has to actually do with intent. I mean, that... I would just go back to since we can destroy Ningenkai with 50%. It heavily has author's intent.
And extend, but then it's like if you calc a feat one way and the author's intent is another, and that means it might consistently like have feats that contradict that later, but then that goes back to using the most consistent feats, which I think is the best way to go.
Yeah, there's nothing that contradicts Sensui being able to destroy Ningenkai with 50% of his power. They even leave Human World to fight.
I mean,
there's nothing.
Also have Kurama saying that, or the statements from Kurama being able to turn the world to ash.
There's statements that put Yusuke at over omnipotent. The statement game.
You could go the same route with Naruto and Hagoromo or whatnot.
So we agree. So we agree that.
Yeah.
That's why I laughed about.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the Kinshiki stating he can
split the world. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't take Black Zetsu's statement that has zero supporting feats or scaling that puts it anywhere. Otherwise, I feel I could argue a bunch of things using the same author's intent or a bunch of other... Yeah. Okay. So, on APDC. Let's see if I can... I wonder if I can pull this over to the thing. Shoot, minimize everything. Shoot, that didn't help. Gosh, dang. Come on. I'm looking for... Not that. AP versus DC. Okay, so... AP versus DC. Can I find it? Of course not. I actually did a little... AP versus DC thing on Paint. That's what I'm trying to pull up. Alright, upload. Okay. And let me get the other one real quick. There we go. This one right here. And I can explain it too, but I think this might be the easiest with my perfect drawing skills. Okay. So here's basically why I think probably the biggest crux and difference between Yu Yu Hakusho and Naruto is that there's a difference between destroying something and destroying it with the air pressure. And then there's probably even a bigger difference when you're talking about the size, like the AoE, of the attack versus the destruction that is caused. So... let's just do just these two pictures. The first one, you have an attack that is the size of 100 meters cubed with a total force of 10,000. And little guy here, he has a durability equal to 10,000 meters, 10,000 per meter cubed. If he gets hit with 10,000, energy, he'll die. However, little guy is very little, and he is the size of a single meter cubed. Would you say that if the attack hits him, he dies?
No.
I agree. My second...
I know, I understand all this, but yeah, you could keep going for the audience's sake.
Alright, well, second... No, never mind. I've explained it on my channel far too often.
Okay. Yeah, because, like, for example, like, but there's one thing I bring up is, like, when Frieza gets blown up in Namek, the planet blows up, but while he's unconscious, but technically he wouldn't actually need planetary potency durability because it goes off in all directions, and like if you in the anime is what like you literally see rocks and trees floating around. It's like, do those trees have planetary durability? Obviously they shouldn't have survived in the first place, but and the manga only shows rocks, but yeah, I understand the point.
Yeah, so my main thing is whenever you look at all of your Naruto feats that you showed that were super flashy and super awesome, they're also destroying a lot of matter. But because they always seemingly require, unlike Sensui's feat, who did it with the AoE of a fist, require big ol' AoE. Destroying more is awesome, that's impressive. Destroying more with less is multiplicatively, based on the amount of AoE less, also more impressive. If you were to have the same total force in picture 2, shrunk down, instead of 100 meters cubed, down to 1 meter cubed, all those 50s would become a totality of 10,000 in 1 meter cubed, therefore able to actually kill the little guy. The smaller things are, the more potent it is. Naruto attacks, he has attacks that are potent, way more than just what they can destroy, Rasen Shuriken and such, but nothing even close to what even Sensui can do.
Okay, and I guess it's my turn to try to disprove that. So the first thing I'd like to bring up is, okay, here is Turtle Island, which, if you want to highball and use maps that show it, it could be considered good island size, and it also has ecosystems and whatnot on it, and like mini mountains on its back. And Guy was able to Guy was able to dwarf that with his Hiradora, which is just a physical attack, no chalk or anything. That wind is all from his physical strike. And in the scan above I posted, the edges of it were able to crush rock, so it has potency as well, that air pressure.
Can you put the second one you did again? It's not loading for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, this is another one, but this is from the manga showing Hiradora in front comparing to the Turtle Island in the back. And here is the other one that shows the edge of it destroying the large rock pikes at the edge of the turtle, showing that it has immense potency, and that's just the wind pressure from his strike, which Kasame took point blank at the epicenter of the attack and survived. And Kasame is like Sage Mode Naruto tier, or honestly below.
He took the air pressure.
Yeah, that whole thing is the air pressure of his one attack.
Yeah.
And okay, so that could already arguably, that's at least basically, I would say at least city level up to island level, depending how big you think the turtle is or how impressive you think that is, but somewhere between that area. And then you have, of course, the famous Madara feat, where you're talking about using air pressure to hit things.
Yep.
Madara not only uses the air pressure, but it's miles away, and it straight up still, it slices those mountains in half. Not even breaks them, it slices them in half. That's how potent that attack still is from miles away. And those are arguably pretty damn big mountains, considering you could say there's smaller ones right in front of it. But let's just say they're about mountain size. But hitting, like slicing through them from that distance with a casual strike already puts like Madara's potency with that swing at least like island level, if not country level. And then we could go even further.
Wait, that swing puts him to island level to country level?
I would say island level, but you could highball at the country level, but...
Because I will apply anything and everything here to Sensui, of course.
I mean, I would argue that's more impressive because Sensui's attack, he was standing on the hill itself when he shattered it. This, like, the meteor, those are the meteors Madara hit that are right next to his sword, and they completely shattered and disintegrated, basically, and then the mountain still gets sliced after it goes through those. And then we have this next scan, which is mountains are getting cut off all over around him, and these are large mountains, and you can see in the bottom left there's like tiny little mountains over it off into the side. Here's some here. I'm showing on my pointer, but there's some small mountains and then these larger mountains around, and they're getting completely sliced and diced. And then let's see. Here is wrong one. Hold on a second.
Just to fill the silence, I think you're actually bringing out what I consider of the most impressive feats in Naruto right now.
Okay, yeah. And then, okay, here is Hashirama's Budo, which dwarfs the mountains around it, and Kurama in front of him. And then his attack, which completely makes the mountains look like little bumps around it. And Madara and Kurama basically tank that attack. They take some damage on the perfect Susanoo, Ren, and Kurama, but they're basically unharmed for the most part. And, okay, here is Hashirama creates multiple giant structures, Rashomon gates, that are each larger than the mountains around them by multiple times, it looks like. And Kurama's beast bomb that shot out completely rammed through them, and basically all they could do was change its trajectory. And see if I can find the other scan. I think I got it. Okay, maybe I don't have that one, but we have the Ten Tails, which was able, like, after it went through those, it went across an entire lake and smashed through them and went across the horizon basically. And the Ten Tails could basically flick Eight Tails beast bomb right back at him casually, and this was the first form Ten Tails. So basically something that could smash through giant, larger than mountain size, powerful gates, and could only have its trajectory changed by that, is it's superseded by a little flick by the Ten Tails in its first form. And the Ten Tails, hold on. I think this is it right here. Yeah, okay. The Ten Tails, there's other scans of it too, but the Ten Tails was strapped down physically by Hashirama's gates.
Yep.
And after Obito absorbed the Ten Tails, he was able to break right out of them casually. So Obito's physical strength after absorbing the Ten Tails, or at least his power, it would be more potent than the Ten Tails. I'm gonna try to find a scan of Obito breaking out. Okay, here's him getting locked down by Hashirama's thing, his pillars. And he uses a bunch of them all in one spot, which, as you would say, would increase the potency of the restricting power, because it's all on Obito's small body rather than spread across the Ten Tails' large body. And he just casually breaks through it. And then, the Ten Tails was also trapped in that barrier I showed above. You want me to post it again, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Post it again.
Okay, this barrier right here.
Yeah.
Trapped in there.
Some of these don't load, but I know what you're talking about, but some of them don't load on my screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then it shoots a beast bomb within it, and it gets trapped and shoots up the top of it because the barrier is so powerful. It withstood that ten-tailed beast bomb, which I showed before, which is massive and powerful. It withstood that, and you can see in the scan too of how the blast above dwarfs the mountains below. And then we have Obito, who is basically able to rip right through those. I'll post a scan. He casually rips this barrier apart with chakra arms. Hold on, that's the second scan. But right here, he uses chakra arms just to grab that and rips it apart like paper, like something that just stopped a country level blast within it. So his arms are far more potent than the AoE of the 10-tailed beast bomb. And then you have Naruto, who is able to contend with Obito with just his BSM form, his Bija mode, Sage mode form. And then he got even more powerful with his 6 paths mode, like incomparably more powerful. And so basically, this version of Obito's potency is nothing compared to him. Let's see. I have a couple more things I'd like to bring up in regards to potency. Okay, here is Sasuke cutting out these giant meteors, which basically covered a small country, but as we can see, they dwarf the mountains around them, and they're way larger than Sasuke Susanoo, and each slash cuts like right through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed how large the fragments were before,
Yep.
and how just the fragments dwarfed mountain ranges. So the potency for that would need to be pretty crazy to go through them like that. And then Naruto was able to clash with Sasuke's perfect Susanoo with just a one tail of Kurama, was able to stop one of Sasuke's perfect Susanoo slashes. And then we have Madara. Basically, Madara took this attack, Rasen Shuriken attack from Naruto, which just the shockwave cut the God Tree in half, which was like many mountains thick. And Madara was not cut in half by this. And then Sasuke cut through Madara like butter. So that would require incredible potency.
Yep, I agree.
And you have Momoshiki after absorbing the fruit, not even fully transformed yet, and Sasuke's sword got stopped by his bare neck, which would be one of the weakest parts of your body. And then you have Naruto's punch, which does good damage to the fully transformed Momoshiki, so his potency should scale actually above that of Sasuke's sword. And also, I showed Sasuke's Susanoo already, and then we have Kaguya punching the crap out of Sasuke's Susanoo. And we have Naruto, who is able to match those same punches with his chakra punches, which also backs up him being far more powerful than Obito's chakra hands. In a collision with Kaguya right here, smashing Vacuum Fist versus his chakra fists, and they were about even. And let's see, I'm going to just quickly go through some of my scans to make sure there's nothing else I want to go over when it comes to potency, but that hits a lot of the man strides here. So we have, you could argue, obviously Madara's cutting those mountains in half would at least be multi-mountain level based off just visuals, but considering he hit them miles away, which is why I would argue up to island level.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You have
air pressure dissipates over distance.
Yeah, power dissipates over distance, and yet it's still cutting mountains in half. So I would argue the sword strike itself, if it directly hit you, that would have island level potency. And then you have like Sasuke, who's far above that, who is destroying giant meteors that are each like island size and just cutting right through them like butter and doing multiple of them at once.
Well, without air pressure this time, but yeah.
Well, he would need, it's a direct strike, but you would still need air pressure to get across it because they're like miles longer than his sword.
Yeah, the kinetic force did continue.
Going through solid rock, like the whole way through.
Yeah, the kinetic force did continue. I'm just saying, I guess I'm being specific. It's not like he sniped it from afar with just air pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be a lot more impressive, but yeah, it's a direct strike, but he would still need like the force to go all the way through and slice them up. It's
Correct.
not like he's hitting them and they're smashing apart. It's going through like in a straight cut.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, here's one more thing. The This time it was a barrier put up by Obito, but it's a similar barrier as before. And this time he had 4 of those tailed beast bombs go off inside of it, and he himself was inside of it and used his TSB shield to block it. So that took 4 tailed beast bombs that each should be around smaller country level in AoE power, and they were focused in that one area, and his TSB blocked it all. And then you have Madara, after absorbing the 10 tails, who's even stronger, got punched right through his shield by 8-Gate Guy's punch. So 8-Gate Guy's punch would have more potency than what the 10 tails beast bombs have showed, even when restricted. And then
actually, real
Madara
quick,
took that punch, and that same Madara was cut in half by Sasuke. A stronger version of Madara was cut in half by Sasuke, because this was actually Madara before absorbing the God Tree. And then you have Momoshiki, who can't even be cut by Sasuke's sword, and Naruto, who could hurt Momoshiki with his punch. So there is like a lot of scaling above country level and striking power when it comes to Naruto. Not to mention how he blocks that moon slicing attack with one hand and goes through it, which also could be argued as country to continental levels of power going through that.
I think Toneri Strike requires scaling from previous feats. What it shows is, I would definitely say, once again, is a massive AoE. You've done really good feats here that are all very, very good, that of course I would say scale beneath Toneri, but Toneri's feat requires these to get an AP value from, because its length is literally longer than what it's cutting. Again, if I was to show the 10,000 across the big bubble attack, if I was asking for its potency, I'm talking about like all those little 50s inside. Like,
yeah, I agree. Like, his potency would only need to be strong enough to cut Moonrock, but it shows how much power he has within him, and they can like concentrate their power, as I've shown. So like, DC is like a way, as long as the character can control their power, you can measure their attack potency almost like that. Like in Dragon Ball Z, like you could say, oh, if they blow up a planet, but then half the time their ki blasts are tiny, does that mean they're weaker, or is it potency? So same thing in Naruto. As long as they have the ability to control their power in a single point, you could argue they also have the potency on par with their AoE. But obviously, if it's an ability, like an explosive ability they have no control of, then it's like something that you could argue is like, oh, you can't translate potency to it. But I think Naruto, they've shown with chakra control and their strikes and whatnot, and what they've done, they definitely have control of potency here.
I would definitely disagree that anything Naruto has suggested that they can say, oh, I have enough chakra control, that somehow that means the attack that requires this AoE or length of it or whatever to do the destruction it did in the first place, I can equate my AP to that destruction. I think it requires scaling. I think his attack scales above everything you've shown, but requires the scaling to do so, is all I'd say. But yeah, I can go through some contentions, and ultimately, of course, because sadly Yu Hakusho is not nearly as long as the series, but I'd be bringing it back to Sensui, of course. But okay, so Madara Susanoo destroys from miles away and cuts through the top of 2 mountains with the air pressure alone. He heavily fragments the mountains in front of him, or the meteor rock, really, in front of him, as well on top of it, and it requires air pressure to dissipate as it's getting weaker and weaker and still has enough potency cut through the top. Let's just, for argument's sake, take what you would consider the size of Beheaded Hill and say that it's the size of an island. How many human-sized fists would fit inside of Susanoo's sword, Madara's?
I mean, probably a few thousand. Okay,
I would say that the potency is concentrated a few thousand times more when he destroys not just some miles and then takes out the 2 tops of 2 mountains, and it's a meteor rock, which is still a very impressive thing, and I'll keep going as I go through this. It's like destroying not just 2 mountains and meteor area, it's like destroying a whole island, but with a few thousands times more concentrated. Again, my 2 awesome artwork pictures. All of that AP is concentrated into the size of a fist. If in this feat, since we're comparing air pressure to air pressure. Additionally,
But Madara's a few thousand times further away, though. So you that
yes and no. So
like it's not like Sensui swung his arm and cut Beheaded Hill in half like from miles away.
Correct.
That would be an insane feat.
Correct. I agree. However, the end of Beheaded Hill, kind of like the meteors that you're talking about Sasuke cutting through, even though he made contact, let's say, like the end of Beheaded Hill, the size of Beheaded Hill, even just using what you have it at in size, let alone what I have it at, would be further away in distance that the air pressure would have had to have traveled than what Madara's Susanoo did. And what he did was pulverize it. So like vaporization takes a whole different tier of energy than just simple destruction of a thing. Like if we wanted to pulverize, like turn basalt rock into dust, takes far less than to straight vaporize it and turn it into like steam and mist or something. Now, he didn't vaporize Beheaded Hill, but he did pulverize a majority of it and heavily fragment the rest of it. That's...
Okay, you keep saying he's destroying it with wind pressure, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't he punch Yusuke, who was above him, and then it crumbled underneath him? And when it comes to physics, like when you hit something, it hits back with the same amount of force. So if his foot's on the ground and he punches Yusuke with a certain amount of force, that same force, and if Yusuke like blocks that same force is getting traveled back and going into his foot and into the ground itself. So I mean, it's kind of like direct contact. Obviously, it's not. It's more impressive than if you punched it directly, but it's still like a lot of force is going back into that hill, which is why it shattered.
Oh man, I see that as a big ol' leap. I think conservation of energy is, let's just say that is almost always ignored in mangas. If you want to argue that there's a conservation of energy happening, that he's taking what he's dishing out, I mean, I can only really disagree. I don't think that's ever borne out in pretty much any manga. But secondarily, Yusuke didn't block it. He had, since we just straight missed. See if I can pull up the actual destroying it. Oh, sorry, I'm in wrong thing. Video, contents, let's go back. There we go. Let's see. Sui. Let's see. Let's see, did it get posted? So yeah, he was punching Yusuke. I don't have just before this because this is the actual feat, so I did just grab the feat. But they were fighting just before, and he goes for an uppercut after Yusuke had been already like knocked away some, and he just straight misses. He had already been like pseudo blitzing him. This is the air pressure that leads to... Well, I kind of already had it, but I'll put it again. This, of course, which ultimately ends up looking like this. Now, again, if we're saying that it's like the size of an island, he's covering a further distance with the air pressure, meaning it took longer and longer for it to get, like it got weaker and weaker for an even further distance, while being several thousand times more concentrated into the size of a fist in comparison to, say, Madara's Susanoo, and was in pulverization and not destruction, albeit the fact that Madara's Susanoo potency was enough that it kept going, right? It did cut through. So, I mean, I would even just grant that the pulverization versus being able to keep going and cut through could even be equalized, just for argument's sake. However,
I'm seeing something weird in this scan. I don't know if they're way closer than I think they are, but it looks like they're on the rocks. And the last one you posted, they're on the rocks after they destroyed the Beheaded Hill, and they're still down there, and they're looking down at them, the others. and you could see Yusuke and Sensui's body like from this distance. Which, if they're anywhere close to that thing, it would imply it's much smaller than we're saying. But I don't know. You can say that's an artist mistake, or if I'm just confused about how far they're supposed to be here.
No. So, they are on what's left of them. I think if I was to have a person on the top of my house and compare the size of them to my house, that'd be one thing. But you don't run a tornado through my house and have the roof collapsed in and then have a guy standing on what's left of my house and say, oh man, he looks pretty big compared to what's left of the house. Like,
yeah. I mean, obviously to a certain extent, but I'm saying it's like, if we're talking island to country sized here, that's like kind of insignificant. But yeah, I'm just saying it could just be the author wanted to draw where they were, but that would definitely contradict, even if it's collapsed, it being like country sized, obviously.
Pulverization, of course, is dust. Like, literally, it's not even... I don't think that it actually harms the feet at all in terms of it being country-sized based on but the logic behind it, the reason I feel that way is because scaling something based on something that's already been destroyed makes absolutely no sense, especially if we're talking about something being literally like the majority of it being turned into powder. Like, you would want all that dust reconformed back, building on top of itself, more and more, until you get the full structure again, to actually get the idea of its size. You also, from the, you can't see, like, it compared to any Oakman trees. Look, I'll say this, full stop. If in this picture here, we could see one of the Oakman trees, unlike every other shot that we ever see of it, if there was an Oakman tree here, and it was, like, the size of them right here, I would agree with you. But without that, like all the other shots, I think it's just simply a wholly different angle on top of something that's been completely pulverized into dust. I don't think it counts against it at all, is my take. But your other feat going about, like the Biju bombs, because the Tintail flicks away that Biju bomb, which of course is extremely impressive. We have Biju bomb taking out the Goju Rashomon.
Yeah, something like that.
Which is changing its trajectory. However, okay, so here's, because this would be the last thing I could even bring up. All of your other feats are amazingly good. However, changing the trajectory isn't like, if it could have, like, destroyed, because we don't know the durability of those gates. We don't know, I mean, obviously, we know that at minimum, it's more durable than mountain rock. I mean, obviously so, but that doesn't tell us, like, its upper limits. It changed the trajectory, okay, but, like, it would almost be much more impressive if it straight up destroyed them. But it did knock over some. That's impressive, but to, like, what am I supposed to get for the AP on that?
Well, like, beast bombs before have been, like, shown to bash through mountains, and I assume you agree that the beast bombs have the force to, like, break through mountains, correct?
I definitely say they have DC that easily goes into that, and in later ones, like Ten Tails or anything like that, definitely have AP to vaporize mountains. Plus, of course, I think their AP is higher than mountain level, but I think that they are mostly DC feats, and you need to incorporate AP later.
I mean, even after getting, like, knocking down those pillars, like, it goes across, like, what looks to be like a sea, and, like, goes all the way to the other side and blows it up. I don't think I have that scan with me now. Maybe, like, I'll post it later or whatever when it's over. But do you know what I'm talking about when, like, it goes across the water?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Which is, of course, the fact that its momentum hasn't really slowed down is very impressive.
Yeah, because that's just how much force it has behind it. And because it's not like Kurama is still, like, propelling it. That's just the force originally shot out. And then, like, the Ten Tails has, like, the power to not just misdirect it, but, like, flick it right back at the person who shoots it. So, like, and that was a casual finger flick. Imagine a full-powered punch from the Ten Tails. And now imagine how the entire body of the Ten Tails had its strength limited by Hashirama's gates that he brought down on it, those pillar things. It could not move. It had to desperately, like, make clones of itself and, like, attack everyone because it couldn't move. And then it couldn't, like, they put a barrier around it, and its full force tail beast bomb couldn't do anything to that. And then Obito absorbs the Ten Tails, casually breaks those things that restrain the full body of the Ten Tails, and then rips casually that barrier apart with his chakra arms. Like that's just like a lot of scaling above like the force of it, like those tailed beast bombs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we never said where we think the other series is, but I think that Naruto easily gets into like country level to in like pure AP. Obviously, scaling more and more as with the latest chapter coming for Boruto, we'll see where it goes because in a time skip, anything's allowed. You're not allowed to say that a person can't be X amount times more powerful since then. So we'll see.
I mean, I think I proved Jubito by himself after absorbing the Ten Tails Obito. He already has achieved country level potency at the very least, I think. And then you have, you also see like the tailed beast bombs that I showed before, like literally all over the land, like massive explosions.
Yeah, so
and, like it's like the Ten Tails obviously I think has more power than it does potency, but then Obito takes that power and turns it into potency, and Naruto is able to handle him with his Biju Sage mode, and then gets even stronger with his Six Paths mode.
So the thing is that's why I was talking about like we were talking like yeah, I think that they're they start off being able to have the DC to destroy a mountain, but then yeah, later when you have stronger ones, you have feats that suggest that they can even vaporize. Again, that's not just simple destruction. Vaporize mountains. That they have more than mountain level AP. But that's just other than that, we're needing like some scaling or multi-mountain level AP. But like that's super weak for everything else we're talking like compared to country level AP. That's like enormously different. So when we're looking at like the Ten Tails AP, like its DC is massive because its AoE is so massive. We know its AP is stronger than any of the other Ten-Tailed beasts, but the other, if we're scaling from that, like the other tailed beast bombs AP is never like shown to ever be close to equal to their DC, and so you're scaling like essentially your chain of scaling is that you have tailed beasts that have AP that is easily above mountain level. Now, we conform that all the way down to a flick from a Ten Tails. So he can, his finger is like easily like over multi-mountain level in AP, which multi-mountain is still nothing. However, okay, well, it can be into a punch. Now, if he can conform all that punch into still like the size of, it hitting a single human or something with all of the force into a punch, then it would be a pure multiplier. But of course, his punch is going to have more force than a finger flick. That's just logical regardless. But to like pseudo an unknown degree. But
I mean, you could say an unknown degree, but you can compare a human finger flick and a human punch, or the mass of a finger and the mass of an arm. And I think we could agree that the punch is going to be hundreds, if not thousands of times more powerful. And then, or you have the full body of the Ten Tails combined. Like, I'm at, like, what's the force of your finger flick compared to how much you could deadlift? Or how much weight it takes to seal you on the ground? And then imagine being sealed on the ground by weights and becoming so powerful that you just flex and the weights shatter around you. Because that's basically what Obito did when he took over the Ten Tails. And then, like I said, you have his TSB that's even more durable than himself that could stop the force of all those constricted tailed beast bombs. 8-gate guy who could punch through TSBs, Madara's TSBs, which is even stronger. And then, so guys 8-gate form should already have, like, country level potency at the very least.
Well, okay, so
you have, what was that?
So yeah. I got all that. What I'm trying to configure, because I'm always trying to be fair and everything. If you end up convincing me, then I'm convinced, and that's awesome. My big contention here is the reason I was saying it's like an unknown degree is that, again, if let's say Ten Tails wanted to punch something the size of a mountain instead of just flick it, I think that the AP multiplier of his flick to his punch applies, and that it would be true. But if you're talking about like him punching a human, that's the unknown degree. Of course, he can get more force behind that punch than the flick, but to an unknown degree that would apply to someone that's like the size of like a normal human or something. And so his Biju Bomb would be superior to that, but even if we're saying like, if we're talking about like AP, he's not ever shown... the baseline's so low. It's like you're talking about like multi-mountain level, and then country's just so far above that. I suppose I'm just not convinced that it gets even remotely close to that in AP. Obito, secondary, like, when he's tearing it with the chakra arms, you have the condensed force, of course, the potency of his arms, concentrated on 4 very small, very specific places. So, like I said, if my little pictures for the big bubble, 10,000 total force. Shoot, I should just post it again because I think this is a main contention point as well. Shoot, where is it? Desktop. I'm looking for AP versus DC. Okay. Reverse order this time. Okay. Shoot, lost my train of thought. I'll just recap. So basically, you have things that are like multi-mountain and AP, at least shown. They could be any bit more powerful, but we can't prove it is the problem. He finger flicks it, and then you want to like have his punch go. Oh, no, I remember. Okay, so he ends up tearing through the barrier, which is a call about durability. So sadly, I have a little human here, but if the human instead, if we're talking about the durability, is the size of, instead of the one thing is the attack with a total force of a 10,000, let's say that was the barrier, and the little human is inside of it. You could say that the durability of it comes down to, once again, X amount per meters cubed, or per whatever amount of volume cubed. So like I didn't put like the little guy having 10,000 per meter cubed for nothing. Just having a flat number like durability equals 10,000 is useless. Very specifically, if you wanted to vaporize a centimeter of basalt rock, it takes 24.7 kilojoules. So it takes 24.7 kilojoules of energy per centimeter cubed. So when he's like doing the chakra arms, that's like blatantly very different in terms of what he's taking on in durability. He's taking on a much smaller amount of area than like what the Biju bombs would be doing in their expansive like AoE. Meaning he's challenging like less volume of durability.
Yeah, but these Biju bombs can also like vaporize large portions of mountains in the earth. Like they leave massive craters. Like you could see.
Yeah, I think the AP is vastly above like multi-mountain level. Yeah, so I mean, I would say his chakra arms are vastly above multi-mountain level of AP. But I'm just saying, what I'm trying to say is that's still not even close to like even Sensui level. This is all still going all the way back is on the assumption that Sensui's feat is just going off of the size that you were talking about. He's challenging much smaller amounts of durability, is essentially.
I mean, we also have Sensui admitting that an attack from Yusuke that destroyed one of those plateaus in the background, if it hit him, he's toast. And the blast from that, all it did was shatter some, like, that plateau. Like, I mean, can you honestly, like, say that attack is more powerful than the Ten Tails Beast attack? Like, and prove it?
Real quick, let me ask you. So, are we taking his states as true then? Because I have statements. And secondly,
okay, but this is Sensui himself saying,
yeah,
he was toast. Why would he lie? Why would he say that? Like, why would he make him downplay himself? That doesn't make sense. Like, it's one thing to hype yourself up, but to downplay yourself. Yeah, and I know that's. He said like his power would stress the planet, but he also said he was afraid of the animals and wildlife. And we later learned he's actually a good guy that didn't want to hurt people. So, and there was a city right above him, so he could have meant him flexing his power could have just killed the people above and the animals above, because the Earth could be any part of the Earth. It doesn't mean the entire Earth. Now,
Daichi is Earth, and Ningakai, of course, is the human realm, which would be just world or planet here. And he's not necessarily a good guy. No. He just wanted to protect.
He's not a good guy, but he's not. He didn't actually. He wasn't maliciously trying to hurt people. That wasn't his goal.
I mean, his goal was to open up the demon world portal so that all the demons could come through. I mean, that seems. He was gonna end humanity.
He admitted that he didn't want to hurt people or something. I don't know, or he wants to be defeated or something. I can't really.
No, he simply didn't want to destroy like wildlife, the trees and the plants. He loves all that.
Yeah.
But okay, let me also ask you this. So, Yusuke's didn't destroy a whole bunch. So, are you saying therefore it's not that potent?
His attack?
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to think it's visually impressive by that feat, and that's all we have to go off of. I mean,
don't you feel like visually impressive is very just like super heavily opinion based? I'm forgetting the word here, but I'm not trying to just say opinion, but subjective. But secondarily, if we're gonna look at just the visuals, like History Channel, maybe you don't, but History Channel, they do things like they hang up pig carcasses and they're like, let's see how awesome this sword is. And there's some swords that can cleave a pig carcass in half. If I was to have another person take a gun and shoot through the pig carcass, would you think that the sword has more potency? Because it obviously destroyed way more.
I mean, I don't think you could tell based off that, but I'm pretty sure you could argue a sword has more potency than some guns, but obviously that's not the point. But yeah, I know what you mean, but this is supposed to be a visual. It's one of the biggest DC feats in the entire series, probably besides the beheaded hill feat. So, and then you have after that one, you have the other one where Kuwabara says no one can survive the attack that knocks him to the horizon, and he basically doesn't survive that attack, which backs up his statement. So we have two feats that are visually less impressive than the ones from Naruto, that one kills Sensui and the other one he admits would kill him. And then we have one feat from him destroying a structure that we really don't know how big it is, honestly, and there's definitely conflicting visual arguments based off that. So it could be as impressive as you're saying, but it could also not be. Well, we know for a fact Naruto beat the crap out of a guy, well, not even at full power, who could cut the moon in half.
Again, we don't know the AP of that.
From Boruto, Urashiki casually beat Toneri. And there's other abilities in Naruto, which I'll get into later, how Naruto has abilities that, well, Yusuke is basically just a tank that shoots energy guns and doesn't have many shots to begin with. But, yeah, we can get into that later.
Yeah, well, so real quick, yeah, DC doesn't ultimately matter too much, like as long as you can get the AP from it. If we need to, yeah, you already got the point with like the gun versus, so I don't need to pull in like specific types of guns or anything. You can destroy far less and still be far more potent. If you, actually, yeah, here's the other. No, what baffles me is you're talking about like knocking him over the horizon. Wait, so like, if a character gets hit with an attack and they don't budge, are you saying that has like a hard limit on the potency?
No. How does that have anything to do with what I said?
Because that would be way visually less impressive, and yet the attack could have like planetary potency. So it's weird that you're saying like, because it's visually not.
You have to have something to scale beyond that. Like if you have a random scene out of context where someone just punches someone and they don't move, you can't say that punch is any stronger than a regular punch. And if there was like other feats outside that you didn't know about that could prove that character has planetary potency, but you can't just say that unless you have the proof outside of that.
Okay, well, so we know that Yusuke scales to Sensui, and we know that they can trade full contact blows, not air pressure blows. Sensui's feat was pure air pressure. Yusuke's spirit gun scales when he first got it. Let me get that. Let's see. First, no. Spirit gun. Come on. There we go. Let's see, so. Okay, here we go. So, like, Yusuke's very first Spirit Gun, when he very first got it, he ends up fighting Goki, a D-class person, and his punches can't even hurt him. As well as when he, just throughout the whole series, I sure hope I don't have to get a whole bunch of scans to show that the statement that went...
I understand his Spirit Gun's stronger than his regular punch.
By minimum of 2 times, when he very first got it, let alone later when he can concentrate on it to make it much more potent than even that. But let's just say just the 2 times increase throughout the whole thing. And just keep lowballing here. He can trade with full contact punches of Sensui. His Spirit Gun, is it just that mountain level in DC worth of AP? I would say obviously not. Of course not. It's obviously at bare minimum all the way into S class when he was like E class. Just it's bare minimum 2 times more potent than the full contact punches that they were trading. That's what would have hurt or killed Sensui. So yes, it's vastly above that. Secondarily, now I can sort of back scale. So let's see. We have things like Toguro. Toguro is a B class. And at like literally 100, he has up to 100% over 100% power to go. So his base 100% is just half of his power. Here he's at like no more than 10% of his power. And with a basic punch, he can hit his other B-class brother the distance of let's say a minimum of a distance of the island. But really, the arena should have taken place in about the center from what it showed in other scans, which I don't feel like grabbing. But should have been at least an island to an island and a half distance knocked away. At like 10%. And here's where I'll probably get into some scaling, because everything that I'm combating you on in terms of like what you've shown feat-wise in Naruto is just Sensui, who is the weakest S-class in the entire series. I think there are Naruto feats that can match / be better than Sensui's feat, unless you were to take it at the size I accept it as. But Yusuke would literally like sneeze and his aura would accidentally vape like hundreds of them. Like, it's... So, I mean, I can go into scaling. I don't know if you want to jump in. I've been talking for a bit.
I mean, yeah, you're going to need to back that up. I mean, you don't have to go in like the complete scaling, but just show the most basic scaling of where you're getting these hundreds or thousands of times stronger than Sensui is or whatever.
So Yu Hakusho scaling in general is very concrete, and so I'll just stick with the easiest ones that are the most obvious then. Just stick with Toguro, because his only power is to increase his physical capacity and muscles. So we have like Toguro. Aura is the weakest thing in Yu Hakusho. He can slice Yusuke up with just his aura at 80%. Shoot, I'm gonna have to find all these almost out of order.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this. You're gonna talk about how his like 100% form is like multiple times stronger than his 80% form instead of 20% stronger.
To the degree that he would literally kill his 80% self with the air pressure of his thumb flicks. As he was heavily injuring... Yusuke undoes the cuffs, if we're going off of memory here. If you need the scans, I'll find them. Yusuke was cuffed. Toguro goes 80%. Yusuke blasts him through the arena, through the forest for a good distance into unknown, actually, in the manga. In the anime, they do mountain. And he's unharmed. Completely unharmed. And his Spirit Gun, again, we'll just use when he very first got it, is at minimum 2 times more potent than his punches. He stops restricting himself, takes off the cuffs. And he just beats down 80% Toguro and blitzes him It's 0 effort. And they're both still B class at this point. They have not been not B class. Toguro, down to like 45% is still B class. Because the gap between classes is so massive. Then Toguro goes 100%. Of course it's not a 20% increase. We can see the feats and the scaling throughout the whole series that would suggest this, but this is the easiest and most precise. He goes 100%, his false 100%, and now the same Yusuke goes to punch him and he blocks it with his thumb. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I got this right here. Blocks it with his thumb. And then he's like, okay, let me do a spirit gun then, which is, again, minimum of 2 times more potent. And he yells it away. He actually just yells. His lungs are able to produce more air pressure potency than uncuffed Yusuke's spirit gun. That's the difference of 100% Toguro, false 100% Toguro, to 80% Toguro, or false 80%, however. And this is also where he starts air pressure thumb flicking, and Yusuke can barely keep up with it. And is getting injured from it. And he, at false 100%, also vaped a quarter of the audience with just his aura. Though they were weaker. But it was hurting, like it was affecting injured Hiei and Kurama in them. Or I think it was just Kurama and Kuwabara, actually. Then, of course, he ends up going 100% over 100%, doubling in power. And we have... Let's see if I can find this last bit here. No, not AP versus. Spirit Gun. This was the basic warning shot that Yusuke sent towards him. Before he was like, screw it, just give me everything you've got. This was before he even went 100% over 100%, and before Yusuke actually gave it everything. He did a warning shot. And you can see the size of the spirit gun compared to the size of the island. And you can see it traveling over the water with just the, like, again, air pressure of it, uprooting kilometers of trees, as well as shooting up the water, almost like the height of the island in some cases.
I mean, that could just because it's closer to our perspective. Like, next to those trees, it looks smaller than the trees, so that doesn't make much sense.
I mean, then, alright, we're gonna have to pick one. Is it,
What do you mean?
well, I'm about to say, the AP thing here. Because generally I have to defend this and say, well, its size is kind of hurting the AP argument. But if we're saying that it's smaller, then it's still doing the feat that it is with the water and uprooting kilometers of trees, while even smaller. That's just more impressive.
But, I mean, is it uprooting kilometers of trees? I mean, I'm seeing trees getting bent back, and maybe some of them are getting uprooted, and then the water is definitely shooting up, but if it's closer to us, where the perspective where it's actually smaller than what we think it is compared to the island, then the water that's getting shot up isn't as big either.
I mean, the water's at, like, the same distance as the island. I mean, it's shot in a straight path.
It definitely looks like it's coming towards us to me.
What? The spirit gun? Coming towards us?
In the bottom left scan, or not the very bottom one.
The bottom right?
The bottom left. Well, I mean, obviously it's coming towards us in the bottom right, but I'm talking about the bottom left up one. Not the one where it's going off into the distance, the one where it's going to the side. It looks like it's slightly coming towards us.
You mean slightly closer and still going off towards, like, the right-hand side?
Right, like diagonal to the right towards us a bit.
Yeah, I would agree that it's that from our perspective it's slightly closer, but we know that the spirit gun fires in a straight line. It's either you're going to say it's like smaller than the trees and it's more impressive, or we're going to use that one and it's still like massive compared to the island. Like,
but I'm saying the island's far off in the distance, so it's going to look smaller compared to the spirit gun. Like, we can literally see the spirit gun compared to in the first scan, we could see compared to that stadium, and that stadium is like a football stadium size. So we know how big it is. It's not comparable to an island unless you're saying it's getting bigger as it goes further away.
I don't think it ever really does that. I'm fine with accepting that it still is able to pull off the feat it does while even smaller.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to also accept that water that's shooting up is also comparable in size to it, and not the island. But it is up, or it's definitely doing something to those trees. It's knocking them back.
Well, it's definitely upper. I mean, you can see you have the scrag and the like air pressure weird stuff going on in the bottom right and the cracks and stuff. But you can.
Yeah, it's cracking some of the trees. Yeah, it's definitely impressive. But I mean, even this feat is less impressive than Naruto's.
Oh no! This is not to show that the feat scaled to Naruto. That requires Sensui and then scaling above. I'm just showing the.
No, I'm talking about like Sage Mode Naruto, like from the fight with Pain. Hold on.
All I'm trying to show is scaling in Yu Yu Hakusho.
Okay. Okay, continue then.
Yeah, well, essentially, I would be curious to hear your opinion then. What do you think the difference is between 80% Toguro and uncuffed Yusuke who blitzes and, like, destroys him? And then I'd be curious what you think the difference is of that Yusuke to 100% Toguro.
I mean, he was beating him up, but he wasn't one-shotting him, so I would definitely say he was a good amount stronger, but I wouldn't say, like, multiple times stronger. And then, well, it seems like 100% Toguro is possibly multiple times stronger than Yusuke, considering how he's finger flicking with air pressure. But I don't remember how the fight finishes it off. But I'm pretty sure Yusuke ends up winning. I don't know how that happens, but I forgot.
Oh, so okay. So what I'm saying though is like what I compared was 80%. What I compared was 80% to uncuffed Yusuke to 100%. Because there's two big power gulfs that happen there. I would say the difference of 100% to uncuffed Yusuke is bigger than uncuffed to 80%. But it's just that much more different from 100% Toguro to 80%, is my point. That it's what I would be using is at least a 2 times increase. Do you think that that's fair?
Sure.
100% to 80%. You don't have to agree, but
I guess we could. I just don't see how this is relevant to current Yusuke or Sensui. I'm just getting like Toguro doesn't seem very good at math. That's what I'm getting from this.
He uses percentages at, like, all times.
Yeah, but maybe his percentages are not accurate.
What?
Because math is math. It can't be different in Yu Yu Hakusho. 80% is 80%. Like, his 100% form could be 2 times stronger than his 80% form, but his 80% form is not 80% of his 100%. It's just impossible if it's 2 times. It's either a 2 times difference or it's a 20% difference. It can't be both. In that universe, it's math is math.
No. It would, yeah. He's
unless your argument is later on in the series, Yusuke's like stated to be like Sensui's like my 20% and I'm the 100%. Like, and then you use a similar scaling method. But I just don't like see how this is relevant like to Yusuke or Sensui scaling.
No, simply his total PL would have gone up by technically 10%, given that he had 100% over his 100%. Within a 10% increase to his total PL, that would constitute, at minimum, a 2 times increase in stats. Which is shown time and time again outside of just Toguro even. But I'm trying to stick with just Toguro because he's the easiest. Like, here, hell, case in point, Sensui. Here, Sensui does it as well. Let's just grab all these. Upload. Okay, so they're A class, and Sensui is the lowest S class, but still S class. And he even went into defensive armor. He is beating them with full contact punches, as well as his special moves, no less, which should also scale to being the absolute lowest bare minimum of 2 times more potent than his full contact, not his air pressure, full contact punches, which they were taking for minutes and minutes and minutes on end. He then goes purely from defensive armor to offensive armor. And let's see. Sensui, Aura. There we go. Yusuke shows up. Sensui's ready to, they start going to their power, and Sensui goes from the weakest S-class in the series, defensive armor, which is already his first thing, to still the weakest S-class in the series. He ups his offense at the cost of his defense to go his full power. And now the main cast, if they were to approach the vicinity of what's being created there, they would be destroyed. They would be killed by their passive aura. They would accidentally kill them. And yet, they could take on not just full contact punches, see if I have to find it here, but they could take on his actual special moves on top of it. Taguro's just the easiest to use. Going from finger flicking to catching him with his thumb to yelling away his spirit gun, all the way, and the fight ends when, after what I showed you was Yusuke's island, little thing you're talking about. That was his warning shot. Then, Yusuke goes 100% over 100%, and Yusuke puts all of it into one super blast that's, of course, much more impressive than anything else we've seen, yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, hell, even as early as, let's see, Sensui, do I have it here with him using his special moves? Shoot, I'm not sure if I'm able to find them right this second, but here, you can see that he actually physically hits them, and they survive. And then just passively powering up with his aura, again, which is vastly weaker than even the air pressure, let alone full contact, let alone special moves, would accidentally kill them. 10% increase to total PL to a 2 times increase in stats would be lowballed. It's shown through multiple feats. There's Sensui, Toguro, even scaling back if I have to go to them with Saint Beast and I'm a D class. Me too, get one shot. Me too, you get one shot. It's not like Naruto is struggling with Madara or something, and then Madara gets even stronger, and he's now I one shot you passively with aura, or even if that's not how their series functions or something, it's now with the air pressure, oh man, I yawn and I destroy you, because that's Yu Yu Hakusho scaling. It's just a stronger scaling verse, and it's consistent and very accurate.
Okay, well, I mean, in this one scene, I don't see it saying they would be killed by the air pressure or their aura. It just says they would get killed instantly if they go in, so that could mean a multitude of things, but regardless, and there's also how Yusuke goes into his demon form, which is one of the biggest power-ups he ever got, and then he didn't kill Sensui by just flaring up his aura. But it doesn't really matter regardless. What I need you to prove is how much stronger is Yusuke currently compared to Sensui. You have to show me
Okay, yeah.
Facts. Yeah,
all right, let's go for numbers. I didn't know that you were. All right, well.
Yeah, because this is going on kind of long. I just want to quickly
Sorry.
power potency so we can get onto speed.
Okay. Shin. No. Shoot, maybe I don't have it for Hokushin. Rama. So here's Kurama in his human form. After they had already gone past Sensui. I'm not going to say that he's definitely S-Class here. It would make sense, but you can't fully prove it for sure. However, we know that Hokushin is a PL of 36,000. And this is Yoko Kurama at 152,000, which is an 80 times increase to his total PL, not his stats. He is also the weakest of the main cast, well, minus Kuwabara, actually. He's weaker than Yusuke here, or Hiei, by a lot. And he would... Oh, in terms of, like, him transforming into, transforming Ryzen mode versus, Sensui, and then not, like, killing him with his aura, we actually don't know what the boost was. We simply know that Ryzen possessing him allowed Yusuke to use all of his actual power and not, like... Because he didn't know how to use his power. He was still getting used to it. And Ryzen possessed him and was like, let me show you how to actually use your power. And I even have author statements since other people care about that confirmed that he was just Ryzen allowed him to use his own actual power that he already had. If you want to say that Kuwabara's statement about it is true, and that Yusuke going Ryzen mode was actually 1,000,000 times more powerful, because that's what Kuwabara says, that would only help my case. But otherwise, I would say...
I mean, in my opinion, it would hurt your case, because if proofs getting 1,000,000 times stronger barely changed anything.
I mean, all I would have to say is that would be a feat scaling for durability of the S-Class. It would be kind of weird, since, yeah, that doesn't seem to make as much sense. But at the same time, if we're just going to take that, then I can take Beheaded Hill feat, and now I can apply it times 1,000,000.
Definitely a hyperbole. I'm just saying I think that statement would hurt you. I wouldn't accept that statement, because he obviously didn't get millions of times stronger.
Well, I'm saying it would hurt and help, because, okay, then they can't vape them by being that much stronger, but now I can apply that to Beheaded Hill feat and just say he's millions of times that. That already, okay, now they're like beyond just planetary level at that point. So regardless, that's a moot point. We both disagree. The 1,000,000 times doesn't need to be addressed. In which case, we don't need to consider why he didn't vape him with his aura. But he did basically one-shot him with his demon gun. But anyways, Yoko Kurama, 152,000. Hokushin, who is the bald monk guy who follows Yusuke around, was 36,000, and was the next weakest that we see for S-Class. For Sensui, we have no idea what he technically was. A lot of things like Versus Battle Wiki take him at like 20,000. Really, there's no way to tell. But he really could even be less than Kurama's human mode there at 1,902. But he's definitely below 36,000. Yoko's at 152,000.
Do we have a confirmed fact that he's weaker than that guy? Like a confirmed statement?
We have several statements that would more so like make it almost undeniable, but not technically truly undeniable. Hokushin was the second-hand man of Ryzen, and all the second-hand people are the second strongest of their respective countries. So Ryzen's country had Ryzen in the millions of PL, and his second strongest was Hokushin at 36,000. He was an S-Class. He wouldn't have really even have been the only one necessarily, but maybe. But there's almost no reason to take him as weaker than Sensui. He also was shown... Oh yeah, never mind. He straight up fights... He fights the same Yusuke who, was at least Sensui's level and bodies him as he trains with him for months on end. So yeah, he's verbatim stronger. Just with actual fighting feats. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But didn't he say that Yusuke was actually stronger than him, but he was just way better at fighting or something?
No, maybe you're mixing up when he, like, had the limiter on him, and he's
that was in the human world, I guess.
And he was actually like, I'm better than you, but then Yusuke's like, you remember anyways. No, when they actually went to Demon World and he could fight at full power, he was better than Yusuke.
Yeah, but I mean, he was beating him in the human world as well, so do we know for a fact he actually surpassed Yusuke in power, or he just evened the playing field and he was so much more skilled that he basically treated him like a baby?
Well, no, so when he beat... I'm doing air quotes, by the way. When he beat Yusuke in human world, where his power was lowered all the way to D class, mind you, Yusuke clearly showed that he wasn't actually trying. And if I need to bring up the feats, sure. But if memory serves, he basically just takes him up on his challenge. He's like, sure. And he gets outdone, outplayed, or, outfought, so to speak. However, when he's like, there, okay, you've learned your lesson, he says something that pisses off Yusuke, in which case he blitzes Hokushin, while lower powered, of course, blitzes Hokushin, and completely, knocks him away, and Hokushin's like, yeah, he could have, easily killed me. And Yusuke's like, I could have turned you to butter, at any time. You would also, if it helps, he also did the same thing against Sensui. If you remember, Sensui went into Kazuya, personality, where he had the gun, and he's, beating Yusuke, senseless, and shooting him up and everything. He's getting all injured, and it's like, dang, he's stronger than Yusuke. And then he, Yusuke gets back up, and, actually, they're fighting over the pacifier. Yusuke gets back up, and he's like, no, actually, I'm gonna body you. And he's like, boy, get out of here, I'm way stronger than you. And he's like, no, I'm actually gonna body you. And he's like, oh, I see you healed from, you have Genkai's talents and all that stuff, because he has regen, of course. In which case, Yusuke proceeds to absolutely massacre that same person he was getting beaten by, just because he was actually trying harder. He kind of does this quite a few times through the series. Pretty much everything would point that he's stronger than Yusuke. Again, they also trained together, for months on end, and it required months of him.
Could easily beat a guy who should easily be able to beat Sensui. Do we have anything beyond that? Any, confirmed power level for Yusuke or anything like that, or someone along his tier?
What, at the time of Sensui, or at the end?
At his prime.
No, simply, so, not fully confirmed, but he, here we go. So Yomi is talking about raising his son to 500,000 before the deadline for the tournament, which was a whole year's worth of prep for the Demon World tournament. And Yusuke says, I'm about at the level of Yomi's son Shura.
So we can assume he's around 500,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and we know Sensui's less than 36,000 or whatever, so...
Yes.
He's slightly over 10 times stronger, basically, then. Probably. Around that.
10 times would be just in the 300,000s.
Well, yeah, more than that, but in the tens of times range.
However, I would say it's his PL is that, not stats.
Okay, well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from with Togoro's bad math, but it's hard.
Did Sensui have bad math too? Did Sensui have bad math too?
Wait, well, he didn't say his percentage, did he?
No, but he literally just shifted his offense and his defense, and he he's still the weakest S-class to the weakest S-class, and goes from, I can hit you full contact with my special moves, to, I'll accidentally kill you with my aura.
Well, it never said his aura, though. They just said if they entered the fight, they would instantly die.
What that was their aura.
Well, yeah, you see their aura, but maybe they would go in and
their battle auras are causing cyclones.
Or one of their attacks. Unless it's directly stated to be their aura that would kill them, you can't just assume that.
I mean, do I need to bring up, Toguro vaping audience people and slicing up Yusuke with just his aura, and then they're creating the giant cyclones out of nothing but their aura, and that's what they're talking about, getting close to would kill them? I always bring up, again, what's the most accurate and consistent? It feels like you'd have to really reach to say that he's not going to be killing them with their aura.
I mean, Toguro didn't kill them with their aura, and honestly, it seemed like there was a bigger gap between 100, like 10% Toguro than that and them. Like, they didn't even stand a chance against like 40% Toguro.
Wait, who's they?
A chance against Sensui in his defense form and switching to offensive form, they would get killed by his aura. That doesn't make much sense.
Wait, so why wouldn't it? And then wait, what about Toguro?
Unless you're saying the gap between his defense and attack mode is much greater than like Togoro's 110% form and his like whatever form he would take to have like be able to hit them and not kill them instantly. Which I don't remember how strong they were compared to Toguro. I'm pretty sure they were weaker than his 60% form.
You mean the main cast?
Yeah.
No. So like Kurama is like, in Yoko form at least, when he fights Karasu, you might say that he's under 80% Toguro, but like Hiei completely like bodies him, like bodies Bui, who would scale to at least 80% Toguro. And again, Hiei like never even takes a hit one, but he also just sits there and tanks his like actual full like blows. And it's not giant AoE either, where the force isn't all going directly into him. And he's completely uninjured. And he, like, one-shots him. All of that's dragon absorbed, but even, like, him absorbing the dragon is such an insane increase to stats, and he went from B class to, I'm still B class. And he's way more than just 2 times stronger when he goes from B class to B class with his dragon absorbed.
I think we have enough on power. I think we can move to speed that now, and we'll come back like for our conclusions of what we think overall. But
okay.
Like, I think we should move on to speed, which I don't think will take too long for me at least.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, go.
Okay. It's okay. So obviously, I'm gonna bring up Naruto dodging Light Fang, and I'm gonna bring up how, well, at least in the anime, it shows that he did dodge it. He didn't like dodge the head swing. Just the head swing. And the manga shows that like these lines, which I didn't do, but someone did, that showed that he did. It looks like he did dodge it legitimately. And then the guidebook does confirm it's light speed. And then even if you don't accept that, you have supposedly, I didn't read this novel, but supposedly this is from a Naruto novel where he dodged what was stated to be legit photons, which obviously move at light speed. So that's a feat, not even a statement. And then you have Naruto, who reacted to and ran and blocked this attack from Toneri, which could cross the moon in like under a second. And crossing the moon in a second would put him at sub-relativistic already. And Naruto had, like, you could see the second one I posted, where Toneri shot the blast out already, and then Naruto ran like multiple feet and lifted his arm and completely prepared for that. So he easily reacted to that after it already shot out. So you have, and that was Naruto not in his prime. He was actually heavily weakened, not even in his strongest form. Already performing sub-relativistic reaction speed feats. And I could also bring up like Akid Sky warping space-time, but I don't think I need to because Naruto has multiple light speed feats and close to light speed feats to show he can at least, I'm not saying Naruto is actually the speed of light or faster, but he can react to light speed, even if it's only because he has like danger sensing from Sage Mode, which proves he has some sort of precog, which helps him even more.
Well, what speed?
He can react to light speed attacks from close range too.
What speed do you think he is, and his attack speed?
He should be relative to Toneri, so speed and attack speed wise, like movement speed wise, moving from one place to another, probably sub-relativistic at close range, possibly relativistic, like in really quick movements like head dodging and weaving, like how he can dodge a light speed attack at close range. I mean, it's honestly really hard to say for sure. All we know is he has the ability to dodge light speed attacks at close range. He has the ability to easily react to sub-relativistic attacks. And, I mean, that's as much as we can say for sure. So, I would say for you to say Yusuke outspeeds him, you would have to prove to blitz him, he would have to be faster than light. And to just, like, have the advantage in speed, you're gonna have to prove, like, at least relativistic speeds, and that's like Naruto could be easily argued at relativistic as well. So you'd have to prove at least relativistic speeds to have him like argue any sort of speed edge, and you need to prove like have faster than light speed feats to prove that he blitzes.
All right, and then I think I throw out my contentions, then I throw out what I think for Yusuke, and then you throw out your contentions and probably conclusion. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so with my contentions, like, it's mostly I just think that all of your feats you just pulled up aren't really that impressive, actually. So it's light speed because it says it's light speed. Let me ask, like Light Fang here. Let me ask you: did Naruto dodge it? Did he evade it?
Yeah.
It cuts all things with the speed of light, making it impossible for the enemy to evade. Is this statement true or false?
I mean, clearly that part of it is a hyperbole, but...
How do you get to say it's just part of it, then? How do you know it's not all?
You could argue that means just, like, nothing is faster than it, which I would accept that part of it. But, or you could argue that he only was able to dodge it because of precog, which I could also accept. But he can... obviously, he's shown to dodge it. And it's been said that stage mode techniques are using nature themselves, so the fact that it's a stage mode technique and it's a light technique, it should logically be light itself.
Nature with chakra, so it's not just physical and shoot, I forgot what their whole system thing is. It's you got like physical energy, the other part that spiritual energy, and then nature ones just do spiritual, physical, and nature. There's nothing. It's not like
there's the feat of him dodging photons, which is literally just light.
Yeah, and then a novel.
Unless that translation is fake, but I mean I've gotten it from like the source where people translated it, and no one said it was false. So
I straight up just disagree with novels.
If you dodge photons, I don't see an argument to that.
I don't really accept the novels as canon. They either A, are never really shown to be canon, or B, completely contradict in a lot of ways the actual manga, the main source material. And then with Toneri's thing here, this is actually more of an anti-feat, actually. This is probably the weakest feat. So, Toneri's beam is very fast, that's for sure. Now, granted, it uses cinema time, but this isn't my fault for the calc, but this is cinema time. It crosses the moon in, say, a second, sure. Comes out to Mach, like, 16,000 when it's got to, like, a second. I wish you could, like, slow down exactly where Naruto appears, where the beam actually ends up getting hit. But do you remember where Toneri is relative to Naruto when he fires it?
I think you're getting to how far he ran compared to how far the beam went, but yeah, I'm not saying Naruto runs at that speed. I don't think he does. I'm talking about his reaction speed is obviously comparable to that of the beam speed.
I would say then this isn't...
It takes Naruto a while to even cross countries. He's not running at that speed, I will admit to that.
Okay. This doesn't really require too much of a reaction speed.
I mean, it does because he put all this chakra into a single hand and started running towards it all after the beam was fired.
Maybe it's just a difference of thing. I would say that that's like a combat thing, a combat speed. I know it gets a little weird. But I would say it's not like a reaction speed. Like maybe there's people who can attack faster than they can even sense or something. Anyways, it's weird, but that's what it is to me. Because sure, he has extremely fast like combat speed for certain things. I'm not so sure about his reaction speed being at least shown here. Maybe you could show other feats to get him like to react to be able to be like at that speed. But even then, it's not like him putting up all of his chakra in his hand is like even full fighting. So like what I'd be expecting is like in a fight where the beam was actually at the speed that the beam is going, instead was actually a person who at every angle and every swing is constantly at that speed, I think would blitz Naruto. Like if it was like alive, right? If that beam was actually like a character in that speed, and he like punches through it once, but then like it just keeps fighting, like it's not stopping. I don't think Naruto handles that speed. Based on this feat, you might need other feats. I think that.
Like I said, this is not. I mean, visually, this is him not even in his sixth path sage mode, and part of Kuruma's not even in him at this moment. So he's like far from full power, and also he's not even an adult yet at this point. So like we could assume that with Kuruma and his sixth paths mode on top of this, which would put him like a great deal stronger. And in his sixth paths mode, like I showed, he dodged Light Fang. If you don't want to accept that, whatever. But
I mean, I would say if we accept Light Fang at light speed, because statement, even though the data book literally contradicts itself with impossible to evade, but it's evaded. Again, I would pull up like the SDF saying, but Urameshi's Yusuke demonic power was infinitely stronger than anything they ever felt. The same SDF people who, mind you, know exactly what they're talking about. If we're talking about like, we have no reason to, is like statements are fine as long as they're not contradicted or any of the other various reasons. I mean, I can pull out infinite, universal Yusuke.
Yeah, but that's like one of those obvious, like, just like them saying, "Oh, this infinitely stronger" or whatever. It's just an exaggeration. It's like just like.
I mean, I feel I can say the same about speed of light.
Dodge is an exaggeration. It says impossible for the enemy to dodge. So does that mean a character who's faster than light can't dodge it? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the whole statement reeks of hyperbole.
Cut all things at the speed of light. I don't think there's just nothing to, and it's called Light Fang, and all the scaling up to that point makes sense why Naruto could at least react to light speed at that point. Like, we have Agate's guy who's slower than him reaction speed-wise, already bending space-time with his movement. And when you get close to light speed, your mass increases, and mass creates gravity, and gravity warps space-time, so that kind of makes sense. And then you have... then Naruto blitzes the version of Madara in base, six paths mode, and Madara could barely react to it after he was already reacting to Guy.
This is the same guy who also had Lee catching up, throwing a kunai in between them.
Well, I think that was during his 8 Gates time or whatever, but he wasn't using Night Guy at that moment.
What I'm saying is,
and also you could just consider that an outlier because obviously Lee is not comparable in speed to 8 Gates Guy at all.
Yeah, outliers definitely seem to exist. I would say that out of if there was ever an outlier, if we were to say that him warping space was definitely due just purely to speed, it definitely seemed most likely to be from speed, mind you. But we don't know what the technique entails. It's never really explained that much. But I also
argue Guy has the fastest raw speed while using that move than anybody. But so I don't think you could scale Naruto to being running or moving that fast. But his reaction speed is on par with that speed.
Yeah, I wouldn't really push so hard against certain, as long as we're not pushing too hard on movement speed. Movement speed is the one where I think Yu Hakusho is vastly above Naruto in, not necessarily the others.
Well, let's get into that then. You can show me how fast you think Yusuke is and why.
All right. Let's see. Okay. And here's part 2 of it. We have, since we're noticing the energy coming through hyperspace, I don't feel like I need to actually hopefully show him going through hyperspace, but we see him verbatim traveling through hyperspace. Since we notices his energy before he gets into Demon World, as shown at the very last panel, so as he's going to be getting into Demon World, he's immediately traversed the distance before, since we could kill the 3. immediately traveled the distance of how many Okuman trees? That's essentially the speed feat. Again, also while at sub 36,000 PL.
Okay, well, obviously I brought up the actual size of those Okuman trees before. I'm not going to get into that again. And then we can definitely see the height of the other trees, which I got into before, but we won't get into that again. But even so, you can't, like, just say, like, instantly is literally, like, it means he basically teleported. You have to give a time frame, and you have to give a distance. And in that scan, there's literally, like, multiple speech bubbles saying, huh? I sense an incredible Yuki.
Yeah, before he gets there.
Couldn't be. So, like, scans can have multiple sentences in them, so, like, multiple seconds can pass through a scan.
No, he says that before he actually gets there. So you see he's actually, you'll see that those are actually thought bubbles if you look a little closer.
Okay.
And he thinks that before Yusuke actually gets into Demon World is all. Secondly, in terms of if we're talking about passage of time, as I talked about before, like, unless shown otherwise, we can only go off of what we understand of real world. So, like, I'm not going to say, like, gravity exists in this new manga or something if it's shown otherwise. But if it's just left alone, we have no idea, I will have the assumption that gravity exists. If I see a mountain, I will be under the assumption that, unless shown otherwise, scales in similarity to, human, like, mountains. Throughout all the scans of Yu Yu Hakusho and pretty much every manga ever, more than 1 second doesn't pass from panel to the next panel.
I highly disagree with that, considering, like, there's plenty of large conversations in many panels, and conversations span multiple seconds. I'm not going to say, oh, a panel's going minutes on end. Obviously, that's not the case.
Sorry.
A panel could go from, like, a millisecond or multiple seconds, like, somewhere in the seconds range.
I should have said during, like, a speed feat. Like, when we're in the middle of traversing X distance, panels, especially during, like, mid-battles and such, battles aren't taking place, like, one panel to the next being more than a second. Like, that's very standard across all manga, Naruto included. When a person slaps a girl's butt, Yusuke slaps Keiko's butt, and she's like, Yusuke, you jerk, and she turns around, next panel, and slaps him. That's 1 second. When Hiei, like, blitzes Seiryu, who can throw, like, hundreds of punches in a second or a split second, that's statement-wise. And Hiei, as a D-class, cuts him up 16 times before he can throw a single punch. That's also within, like, a single panel. That obviously should be less than a second. Whenever you see these speed feats, and especially, again, if we talk about, like, consistency, whenever we see a speed feat in Yu Yu Hakusho, it's very obviously within less than a second. It makes just the consistency argument that this would be less than a second, but 1 second.
I mean, I would agree in close range combat, obviously, like, because these characters are so fast, every move they do should be in under a second. But when you're talking about, like a far, like, he's off in the distance, traveling a long range, it's like, maybe he did it in a second, or maybe he's watching, like, him stream down, like, or, like, I don't know, it's just hard to tell the exact, like, speed time frame. I wouldn't oppose it being around a second, but, like, it's hard to claim it as a fact, if you know what I'm saying.
No, let me make this very clear, if you don't mind. I don't, almost all of this, I wouldn't claim as pure fact. I argue from a sense of, and hopefully I would say you wouldn't, like, claim, like, Naruto is in fact, like, at a certain AP level. You're using logic, we're using logic. Power scaling is based on logic, and we're, hopefully, both people, if we're good faith actors, going off of what we think is the most consistent and accurate. So I'm arguing from a perspective of accuracy and consistency. I feel that favors what I'm talking about. But I wouldn't say that it is fact, like, he's definitely doing it with him.
Yeah, I agree with you. But Okay, so if you said that he said all that stuff before he came into Demon World, so is that line him traveling after those thought bubbles or something? Like he thought that and then he shot down all the way to the floor, or is he just coming out of the clouds at that scan?
Yeah, the portal is at the top of the clouds. Yusuke is still in hyperspace before this, and he's about to get into Demon World.
Okay, I thought that line shooting down from that spark in the clouds was him.
No, the thought bubbles are before Yusuke's actually in Demon World, and then the very next panel, of course, is him being there.
But we don't know how long the hyperspace is, though.
I'm not even calculating hyperspace. We just simply know in the very last panel that he's not made it to Demon World, so we know from the top panel where he's not in Demon World, and the next panel, he's traveled the full distance that we see from Sensui looking up to the portal, which is, you see from the beam of light, is at least positioned further back than the horizon area that we can see. Yusuke...
So that beam of light is him coming down then, is that what you're saying?
No. I'm trying to use the light beam to show you that like its position is actually behind everything else, including like the background. That to give you an idea of distance.
Okay, so where's his starting point and where's his ending point?
His starting point on the first panel, the third little frame there, his starting point is almost into Demon World, almost outside of where the like spark in the clouds. He's almost out of that area. He's not in Demon World yet. That's what the third panel is.
Okay, so he came from the clouds, and then he's on the beheaded hill in the next scan.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, I see.
And
but didn't you say before but wasn't that his bird that was carrying him though?
That was Pooh. The same person who massively scales drastically lower, much slower, weaker than Yusuke. Now, you can argue that Pooh got a transformation, but that's because he's connected to Yusuke spiritually, the same Yusuke who also just got a transformation. There's astronomically, like, if I wanted to bring up feats, I would show that Pooh is actually weak, like, super weak. And then if you're going to say he got transformed, so did Yusuke. At bare minimum, because they're actually interconnected, the most you could possibly say is that Pooh scales to Yusuke. Realistically, the more accurate argument would be that Yusuke's faster, but I would merely say that Yusuke is faster than Pooh.
Combat speed, sure, but it's like, could you say his travel speed is faster necessarily?
With literally everything Pooh ever shows ever, yeah.
Okay.
Pooh's actually extremely slow.
Goku still used Kintone, even though obviously his combat speed's leagues above. But yeah, okay, I understand your point.
I mean, we also see. Oh, it's in reverse order again. You can see that the spiral that they're going to is once again from like where we can see beyond the horizon. But this, I will say, this is sort of a weaker one because the vantage point is really weird. Because I'm not trying to overhype anything. I understand that this is a weaker feat because then I have the one that's already been posted where he demon gunned him past the horizon. But this one here is just more. I'm stacking evidence. They run there very quickly, and we can see when they start running mid-area, like each of these panels when they're running there, am I supposed to think it took like a full second from panel to panel? Of course not. It's fractions of seconds. And then they're just immediately there, but that's kind of hitting what we already finished. And then lastly we have like the demon gun. Where he, if I can grab it here. Upload. I hope I'm not doing all these in reverse again. Here we go, last two. Okay, If they're out of order, I guess I might have to explain. Shoot, they are. So Yusuke, you know, he's in his transform state, which is just his full power of what he already had. Shoots out the demon gun, and it hits Sensui, and you can see in the panel where it's like all pitch black in the dark, and you can like see it traveling within the same frame. You can see that after it hits that, the next one is the panel actually right above, where he jumps after him. And he starts jumping in the top left one, the top left panel. They all are like, oh shoot, we gotta go. Or what the hell's going on? And that's including Pooh, who is at the very bottom scan. Sorry for making you jump around here. Pooh is completely left in the dust. As they, throughout the whole fight, were following the fight and following them. And you can see at the very last panel that Pooh also catches up very quickly, but like he's not even close to where Yusuke could travel. Again, I would just say that Yusuke is bare minimum equivalent to the travel that Pooh can do. This is just extra evidence, and they clear the horizon multiple times throughout multiple things, and things that are the size of Demon World, but you have shown that the trees are more accurately not the size I was thinking they were. But still over the horizon, nonetheless.
Okay, yeah, he's obviously definitely very fast, but can you give me an exact calc with that?
Well, speed equals distance divided by time. If we wanted to take the very first feat, it comes out to a Mach 2,600 and about 24 for Yusuke. With his very first feat that we see. That is about where he ends up at maximum. As the lowest S-class in the whole series.
Yeah, and I assume you're using your beheaded hill calcs for that, though.
Oh, that is true.
Okay, but let's just say if we go with that, it like most KCM Naruto calcs that I've seen when he blitzes the Raikage, if we accept the Raikage's like around lightning speed due to the fact he blitzed Sasuke, MS Sasuke, who should be comparable to MS Satoshi, who was sick, who reacted to lightning. He was getting blitzed by the Raikage, so most people accept the Raikage is lightning speed. Also, he has the statements saying that his neurons actually move at light speed or whatever, so you could argue as light speed reaction speed based off that, but I wouldn't say that because a human neuron also goes way faster than we could react to. But he has light speed neuron firing, and he in the guidebook, which I wouldn't go with this statement, it says his lariat's almost the speed of light. But he has survived the speed of light before as a feat on screen, when they used the light speed teleporting technique on him. He was like the only person who could survive it. Well, so now they could too because of her healing, but he was like the only one durable enough to because of how like fast he goes. And KCM Naruto, who's weaker than Biju mode Naruto, who's weaker than Six Paths Naruto, was able to completely blitz him. And I've seen Calix putting that like Naruto in quad Mach because of that at KCM. And then, so that would already put KCM Naruto like around Sensui fight Yusuke in terms of speed. And then you have BM Naruto on top of that, and then Biju Sage mode on top of that, and then Six Paths mode on top of that, and then adult mode Naruto on top of that.
So, shoot, I think I did my math potentially wrong. Regardless, real quick is, speed of lightning. People always like to use the third the speed the light thing. That is the return stroke. A downward stroke of lightning is like...
Yeah, I think it's Mach 300 is the leading stroke, or Mach
390
something.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm going off of.
And then if you give...
The return stroke could have been where like the confusion with the Raikage striking, like Lariat almost being the speed of light came from. I could see where that happened, but yeah, I don't think he should be that fast, and when characters dodge lightning, it's definitely the lead stroke they're dodging.
Here we go. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I had the right Mach speed. 2,624. Here we go. Sorry, I'll be honest. I was pseudo trying to make sure my math was right because I didn't want to mislead you on how fast he was. But yeah, you said so. You're saying that he's about the speed of lightning because he was able to blitz someone who could match another Itachi who could react to the speed of lightning. The only big problem with the react thing is that he had plenty of prep time to react to.
That's true, but he didn't bring out a Susanoo until after the shot was fired.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say Susanoo like forming and like coming out would definitely be faster than like Mach 300. But it's not like he wasn't ready for it. I wouldn't say that he's like I can react.
But we also have to keep in mind Itachi was 6, so like a prime Itachi should. And there's also multiple statements like Itachi cut lightning when he was a teenager, like and he's done it. I think he did it in one of the filler episodes that was based on the novel where he actually did it in the novel, and I believe a couple other characters did it in the novel. But regardless, Itachi, or not Itachi, did I say? I meant Kakashi, lightning times before with his lightning blade. So, like, we know for a fact he did it. Like, it was stated, and then it was also shown in the anime. And that's why it's called the lightning blade. So, I just don't see why we wouldn't accept Naruto high Jonin or Kage tier characters being lightning timers when we have the lightning blade, Itachi literally doing it on screen, and then like the Raikage like having his light speed neurons and moving his body fast enough to blitz said characters. Like, you'd have to like just argue around it, but it just seems like the obvious choice that they're supposed to be lightning timers, with the Raikage being around lightning speed, and then KCM Naruto being faster.
Maybe. So here, my only problem would be. So again, you're talking about pure reaction speed. The thing is like. Then there's the Then you have a problem of distance. Okay, so if you answer this, maybe I'll agree. We'll see. I cannot react to the speed of lightning.
Obviously.
That's actually false. Depends on how far away it is. If like
if you're someone let you know it's coming from really far away, you technically could, but even if they didn't, by the time you saw it coming, you would probably be hit. But
well, no. So let's say we had a lightning bolt that came from like the moon.
Yeah.
Like I would be able to react to that.
Yeah.
So the distance matters. I think when we're talking about like Itachi reacting to lightning, we already have the fact that again he had prep time, and then if you're talking about scaling to like Raikage, he's also, or shoot, was it Raikage? No, when we're talking about like Kakashi cutting through the lightning. Again, where in the manga is that? Because if you're talking about novels,
Guy said like when they talked about the lightning blade in part 1 Naruto, Guy was like it's called the lightning blade because he cut through a bolt of lightning.
Okay, wait. So is his statement?
And then in the novel, it does happen as well.
Is his statement taken as true because Guy knows him and like he knows what he's talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel I could easily argue the hyperbolic statement about Yusuke being like infinitely stronger than anything the SDF ever felt.
But then there's the novel and the anime scene that has him do it, and then you have Itachi also do it. So it's like it's consistent.
Wait, novels. I disagree with the novels being canon.
Okay, but they even added it into the anime, so I mean, like, obviously you could say the anime is not canon as well, but I mean, you're like just ignoring the official like sources
Well,
that back up.
I wouldn't ignore official, but that's the whole argument. Is it canon? Canon is the official.
I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Because so the manga is the primary source for a reason, unless it wasn't what was created first from the author. But what you're looking for is created by the author and overseen by the author, generally written by the author.
Yeah, but also the guidebook that says Light Fang is Light Speed, it says it's written by the author, just saying. Like, the guidebook says by Kishimoto.
Well, yeah, we're talking about canon, not if statements therefore true, because...
Yeah, not anything, but you would have to prove, like, Guy, I think, has got, like, he's consistently told the truth, so you'd have to, like, show that he's, like, a liar, basically, to say, like, why would he lie about why it's called the Lightning Fang?
Okay, fair. Like, but then can you show why the SDF would lie?
Oh, the Lightning blade's as fast as lightning. He literally said it's called the Lightning blade because he has cut a blade of lightning in the past with it.
I mean,
so
can you...
Unless Guy had a reason to lie, or he's like a guy who lies, like, I don't know why we wouldn't accept it.
Let's see.
Because, like, I agree certain statements, it depends how it's stated. Like, when characters say, he's as fast as lightning, yeah, that's like a hyperbole, it's a common hyperbole statement. But saying the attack is called the lightning blade because in the past he cut a blade of lightning, that is not a hyperbole statement. That's just a statement of what happened in the past. And then multiple feats back up this speed. And then it actually happened in the novel, which was adapted in the anime.
See if I can... It's sounding like if the statement can't be contradicted and the person doesn't seem to have a reason to lie, then we ought to take it as true. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah. Unless it's like a straight up hyperbole statement that, like, obviously there's, like, you can tell the difference between a hyperbole statement.
Well, I use feats and scaling to determine what is or isn't hyperbole.
Yes, and then I also I showed the feat of Naruto reacting to, like, the sub-relativistic moonbeam, which would be consistent with him being faster than KCM mode Naruto, who is faster than lightning, who's faster than Kakashi, who's a lightning timer. I think that's pretty consistent. Like, did he go from, like, Kakashi's not even a lightning timer to Naruto, who's almost light speed? Like, there has to be a state of progression. And Kakashi was able to keep up with Obito, who was able to keep up with BM Naruto. So honestly, it makes sense for Kakashi to have reaction speeds on that level.
For ease, I will accept what you're talking about for their like reaction speed.
Yeah.
But with the statement, Sensui's statement, he has no reason to lie. He's not contradicted. For the SDF, they have no reason to lie. They're not contradicted. For how they explain, like, what it is to be S-class, would they explain A-class even? Yu Hakusho, A-class, and we're looking for... where is it? Like, talking about, like, in depth, talking about how A classes are, like, the various gods of religion in terms of power. In fact, he even refers to angels. You have other statements talking about, like, the S-class people, you know what, even better, we know that these religious gods exist because that's literally what Enma is.
Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, Enma's, like, weak sauce.
He would be like, no, not Ko-Enma, his father.
Does he have any feats?
I mean, why would Ko-Enma lie, and he's definitely not contradicted.
Or how strong is Enma stated to be?
Strong enough to cause will be able to embrace heaven and earth, and he does rule over all of heaven. I predict a shakeup more violent and widespread than the Great Kanto earthquake, Mount Fuji may well erupt, which would take about country levels of force to cause it to erupt. And that's just the collateral damage. Our punishment will be worse. Basically, talking about him being angry and that he can cause havoc over like a planetary distance. This isn't a potency thing, but we have scaling for potency. He would be scaled into like A class, unless you want to make him weaker because he, unless you want to make him weaker.
Do that one attack, like that would be his rampage would do that. Like I'm sure, like if an A class or an S class rampage with enough time, that would definitely ruin the world. It would be completely destroyed. Well, not like blown up, but like people, when people say nuclear war would destroy the world, they don't mean the Earth's gonna blow up because all the nukes together can't even put a dent in the moon.
I never brought up Inma to talk about how strong he was. You were asking if like it scaled. I brought up Inma to show that the mythological.
But like if we're like for A classes, like I'm just saying we don't have a picture of how strong that is. It means he's strong enough to cause country level plus damage in a reasonable amount of time, but it doesn't mean he can do it in one attack. That's just all I'm saying.
A class is stronger than Toguro, weaker than Shinsui. It doesn't matter because end of series is he's fighting end of series like S plus class Yusuke, not an A class. Yeah, okay. So I'm just saying, talking about statements here. Like we could say that we have like the god of Christianity is an A class because statements. There's no reason to they contradict. In fact, it's supported with Shinsui later talking about angels, which falls directly towards like Christianity. Other things have like jinn and such, but generally not angels. Doesn't matter. I don't care about the statement things. I don't accept them for Yu Yu Hakusho unless there's feats and scaling to support it. That's why I push back on the statements for Naruto.
Yeah, I'm just saying there is feats that support the Naruto statements.
Yeah, I guess it's just the canon non-canon thing. Okay. Let's see, so I guess we covered, so the last thing, I already covered scaling, because most of the feats with Yu Yu Hakusho ending the way it did is scaling. Already been covered, but the feats that I'm bringing up are just when they're, like, literally, like, absolute magnitudes upon magnitudes weaker. You're basically going against Shinsui here in terms of feats, and then I get to still scale to what Yusuke actually is.
Okay, so before I go in, I'm going to move into like the ability section and say why I think Naruto would win in a fight. Do you want to bring up any last thing about power or speed that you...
No, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so obviously Naruto's staple is his clone ability, and he can create like up to 1,000 or plus clones, and each clone has been shown to have the attack power on par with his original body. Mm-hmm. So what I've shown for Naruto and those potency of hits that could hurt like Momoshiki that couldn't be hurt by Sasuke's blades and whatnot, and that could cut through Madara, blah blah blah. Each of Naruto's clones could hit with that power. And like Yusuke, I remember Yusuke, at least in the beginning, he had a very limited amount of spirit guns he could use. I don't remember. I know he got more and more as the series went on. What was the final number he was able to do by the end of it?
Shoot, I'll be honest, I'm going off of memory here, but he could fire... Because I'm trying not to remember the anime, gosh dang it. For easy argument's sake, because I don't think it actually matters, say he can only shoot about 6. Because I know he's fired at least that.
Okay, so I think you know where I'm going with this. Obviously, Naruto has way more than 6 clones. And I think by the scaling you presented, Yusuke is going to at least need his spirit gun to outright kill Naruto, and that's if I accept your scaling, which I personally don't, but I think he would need his spirit gun. And unless he hits the actual Naruto, he's going to end up running out of spirit guns. And not only does Naruto have cloning abilities, he can transform, including his sexy jutsu, which he likes to use, and he has used in combat. I don't know how often... I don't remember how, Yusuke was like distracted by girls or not too much in this show, but if he is, this could definitely distract Yusuke, and Naruto could slip in a bunch of tail beast shurikens or all those clones. He could actually transform shurikens into people, or like vice versa. So he could, like, those could all be tail beast shurikens ready to explode in Yusuke's face that he's not ready for.
I think the reverse harem would be more effective, to be honest. I don't think he'd be ready for that.
Yeah, that's true. And then also, like, here's a gif of Naruto who is pretending to be a shuriken, and he used that to trick his opponent. So he could have 1,000+ clones, each with their own mind, just as smart as the original Naruto, just as strong. Their only deficit is that they basically get one shot at their hit. But so each one could come up with their own plan and do something similar to this. So you could have thousands of people planning stuff like this, and each Naruto, I believe, is more powerful than Yusuke. We saw when Naruto made his clones during the war, each one was stronger than even like the Kage that they were like, or whoever he was with. Like, he was like on par with the Kages, if not above them. And that was just a clone that we were like watching the whole time, fighting like the third Raikage and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Showing that a massive amount of stamina. And another stamina showing for Naruto is when he gave like literally all the thousands of soldiers in the war, he gave them each a Kurama cloak that like multiplied their power by 4, and which is a huge number, especially considering how strong each ninja is. And then Naruto was still powerful himself, being able to fight like Obito and whatnot. So like, even if Yusuke was on Naruto's level or above him, which I don't think he is, Naruto could still just win due to his versatility and his abilities. Like, Yusuke can punch, and he can shoot a few spirit guns before he runs out. Like, I just don't see how he would win unless Naruto was, like, really stupid and messed up.
Okay, yeah, I think mostly what you're thinking of in scaling is that Naruto is above the Sensui feats, and even then, I just, made it easier and just said, okay, since we bust maybe something like the size of an island even if you don't agree with that, like, for me, I consider that a very big, I of course heavily disagree with that, but even if he busted just an island with the air pressure of his punch, which of course would be AoE against all the clones and such, again, you said you disagree with the scaling of Toguro. I showed, or like with the series rather, I showed and explained through multiple feats that 10% increase in power is like a minimum of a 2x increase. Honestly, the gap between class to class gets even bigger and bigger, so it should be take even less of an increase for the same amount. And
yeah, but if you have to like, if you're going off the power level argument, like he says, oh, I got 10% stronger or whatever, but in regards to what? If he got 10% stronger, but it was really 2x stronger, it's not 10% stronger unless it was a 10% gap in his power level, and a 10% gap in power level is a 2x actual strength difference. But we don't know Togoro's power level, or if that's what he was talking about. Like, if he says a 10% gap, we would assume he just means his power and stats in general, which clearly isn't the case, though, so I mean, it could just, it's just weird. Like, I mean, it kind of reminds me in Dragon Ball, like, with, like, how, like, Frieza's percentages and how, like, some characters are 20% stronger, can stomp others, but then, like, Frieza was, like, 20% weaker than Super Saiyan Goku, but fought him to a standstill. Like, it's just weird. Authors aren't good at math half the time. I mean, like, I understand where you're coming from, but it's, like, it's just, like, it's so, like, not concrete or, like, set in stone.
I disagree.
It's really hard to say he's stronger than Naruto when Naruto has all of these feats, and which backed by potency, which I showed as well.
I think you're making it convoluted. He shows, like, he states his percentages every time. He never states, I'm now 2 times stronger. So 45% Toguro, he goes 45% and, like, solos a team of, like, low C class to B class demons. To say, like, if you're talking about, like, a 2x increase, you'd be expecting, like, 90% Toguro, and that's blatantly against, like, every feat shown. So it's obvious, like, the percentages in his power translate to large increases to stats, however you want to cut it. The percentages, though, like, we have measuring throughout Yu Yu Hakusho multiple times. When they measure like their PL. We know about their people giving their total power level. We also know for certain that him going up by percentages is a vast increase to total stats. He's like, again, within a 10% increase to himself, his stats are at an incline of a minimum of 2 times increase. It's just hyper blatant to me. And then, of course, even if you take Hokushin at the 36,000, say he was equal to Sensui, Yusuke scales to 500,000. And that's not just in a base multiplier, of course. This is why, and it makes sense. This is why they can aura vape each other, like, without even trying. Which is shown all throughout the whole series. Toguro goes from a B class to a B class to a B class to a B class as he keeps powering up. He finally gets 100% over 100%, and he's B class. And that's the gap of B class. That's just how big the gap is. An A class is even bigger gap. An S class is an even bigger gap than that. I mean, I didn't make this, but this shows it pretty well in my opinion. Like, I don't know, you might have to click on it, but like, you have the little white dot in the middle, and then you have like the black dot in the middle of the white dot. That's supposed to be like Toguro. This is pretty accurate. To get like a representation, like idea. And all of the feats support this. And the gap is just bigger and bigger and bigger to like, not just multiplicative, but an exponential increase. Every feat supports it.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm sure there is big gaps of power, but it's like, you're going off of like, it's like, oh, he's stronger, and he's stronger than him, and he's stronger than him. Like, we can't like dial down, it's like, where exactly are they in power? And while I have like concrete feats, like, it's more like, it's not like your fault, it's kind of like, it's just what we have to work with here, and I just have way more to work with, honestly.
I got 170 chapters, baby. No, but I still kind of disagree. I didn't show he's stronger than this guy, he's stronger than this guy. I showed 80% Toguro bodied Yusuke and was completely unharmed by his cuffed spirit gun that did X amount. Then Yusuke takes off his cuffs, and now his punches have more potency than the spirit gun he had, and is completely bodying Toguro. That's already an insane increase. Given his spirit gun at a bare minimum is a 2 times increase, now for his punches to be stronger than his spirit gun, he didn't go from, I'm uncuffed, my spirit gun is 2 times stronger than my spirit gun. He went from, like, my punches are stronger than my spirit gun. And 100% Toguro, like, these are all direct. You can't possibly go against them feats where he blocks his punch with the thumb and yells away his spirit gun. Yada yada yada. That's not me going, he's stronger than this demon, and that demon's stronger.
I agree. You proved that they got multiple times stronger
within percentages
in that specific case, but
and then Sensui's.
You can't like you're trying to you can't Toguro's power, like trying to scale every character off of what Toguro said his percentage was is just really like, I think it's too much. Like, you can't assume that much. I think it's safe to say, like, let's say if Setsui's around 20,000 and then Yusuke got to 500,000. I think it's safe to say, I think it's fair to say, okay, so what is that,
10 times increase for 200.
A little over 20 times stronger.
25 times.
25 times stronger. Okay, so, and then if you said, okay, if we went with what I said, I think Beheaded Hill's size can be argued a lot of different places, but let's just say, if we mid-balled it, I think it's a mid-ball at the island level, 25 times island level.
No. He did it with the air pressure of a punch, not full contact, let alone the special.
25 times island, and then you could, whatever you want to multiply on top of that, you could maybe, say, okay, continental level by the end of it, or whatever. Continental plus even. But I think I've already easily argued Naruto at that level, and then, like I said, he has thousands of clones, better strategies, better stamina. Okay, let's just assume, for the sake of argument right now, that they're exactly the same strength. How would you argue Yusuke would win, or do you think Yusuke has to win via stats?
Yusuke's a brick. He has to win via stats. So yeah, it comes down to that scaling.
Okay, so how do you think the fight would go exactly?
Based on even using again, just going off of how you're talking about with Beheaded Hill, it's not a 25 times increase as obviously I feel I've shown. That's them using their aura, and he can vape people that I think scale stronger than Naruto. He literally... I think the difference in Naruto to Yu Hakusho in potency is immeasurably vast. To a degree that Yusuke could actually aura vape. I think that his potency is and durability is just so many magnitudes above. With their direct, and I feel very concrete scaling.
Okay. So, I guess we should go into our conclusions now, unless you have something else to add.
Nope.
Okay. So, my conclusion is, I think I showed Naruto was overall more powerful. He has more consistently high-end feats. I think especially the showing that he's more strong than someone who could slice the moon, and that wasn't even like Toneri going all out. He could casually cut the moon. He could do it multiple times. And then there's also Madara, who used a jutsu that spread like the tree across the entire planet, so you could argue like planet surface level range of power. And the infinite Tsukiyomi, which also covered the planet with the Genjutsu. Kaguya's planet dimension thing, which Naruto arguably doesn't scale to, but he does scale above the Ten Tails, who has shown power of like country level power with one Biju bomb, and he could shoot multiple of it. And Naruto scales above the Ten Tails full power, and it's while it's not potency, we saw his like stamina was like the chakra was like almost comparable to the size of the planet visually to the sensory ninja team. So Naruto could be highballed to like low-end planet level if you really want to. And then plus he and Sasuke literally created a moon ripped out of a planet to seal Kaguya using the power Hagoromo gave them, and both of them together are supposed to be Hagoromo level because each give him 50% of his power, so you could argue 50% moon level based off of that, which also kind of backs up him being stronger than a guy who could slice the moon in half, while not even at full power. But even at maximum low ball, you have him like performing like continental plus feats via scaling of attack potency. And then you have his speed, which I showed. He dodged Light Fang, which is stated in Guidebooks to be light speed. He reacted to that moon slicing attack, which would be sub-relativistic, pretty easily. And he scales vastly above lightning speed. And I don't think you proved that Yusuke could outright blitz him, or is even faster in general, but you definitely didn't prove he could blitz, in my opinion, since Naruto reacts to light speed attacks. And you didn't even prove he was faster, because the highest calc you gave was like Mach 2000, and that was using your Beheaded Hill size scaling, which I think is a big highball. And then even if you multiply like him being 25 times faster than that, like the end of it, that's still only sub-relativistic. And ability-wise, you would even admitted if they're the same power, Naruto has this in the bag. So if you think we argued them about the same, then that means Naruto wins by your own admission. So Yusuke has to be stronger, which I just don't think you proved. And I think your argument really relies heavily on the Beheaded Hill feat size, which I think is heavily contested, and I proved that it's heavily contested. And a lot of assumptions on scaling, which even if they're logical assumptions, they're still assumptions. Well, I basically used like solid feats and evidence and statements, and that's why I think I won the debate. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I showed that when we're talking about AP and DC, that when we actually broke it down to the AP feats and he was doing scaling, that it was only showing to be, we'll say, continental at best, if even that. Talking about like Toneri Slice and things is mostly a DC feat, requires scaling from prior things. Nothing AP has them any higher than that for sure. Whereas I showed Yusuke and the actual scaling, he's talking about like 25% times more powerful. I don't know why. There's nothing that shows that the scaling works that way. Every feat shows that it scales the way I'm talking about. It's not refuted past that doesn't feel right to me, is how it seemed like to me. When we're talking about speed, he's arguing against a Mach speed that was talking about like Sensui at the like Sensui's level of PL, whereas we're talking about he's not against Sensui, he's against end of series Yusuke, who is not just 25 times more powerful, but exponentially like 25, like to the exponent of 25 times more powerful of 2 times multipliers. Secondarily, I would agree that Yusuke doesn't blitz, but that his Naruto's reaction speed isn't enough to warrant him not getting completely like ran circles around. And that the travel speed means that even if he can react once, he has to turn repeatedly. He's constantly being circled and being hit from different directions, as Yusuke can actually move at the speeds that Naruto can merely react to. And that Naruto cannot run himself. So he's always being pushed in a corner. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, I suppose the last bit would be, I feel like the Beheaded Hill thing can be contested, but only in a sense of subjectivism, in which case the best way to go about that is being as accurate and consistent as possible. I feel I've shown that Beheaded Hill is most accurately and consistently shown the size I'm saying, with all of the consistent and multitude of scans that show the take on Okumin trees and what it means for like the size of an Okumin tree, and how Beheaded Hill scales to that, where there's the Okumin trees that are clustered together at a 3, and the only ones that are that size are the large ones, and that's the ones that we see next to Beheaded Hill. That just makes it more accurate and consistent, and all the other scans showing their size. To say that it's more accurate and more consistent to take it at a smaller size, I feel is to ignore consistency, honestly. And given the actual scaling of it, yeah, basically Yusuke just completely outscales. The scaling Yu Hakusho is superior, such that he can easily just aura vape with aura that is absolutely way more massive, that it doesn't even matter about the clones. Even without the aura, just off of what Sensui busted with the air pressure, Yusuke again isn't just 25 times stronger, but like a 2 times multiple increase to the 25th power times stronger. And the air pressure alone would just blow away Naruto and his clones. So for that reason, Yusuke, kind of like Superman restricting himself to no powers, would absolutely destroy, a building level character who has extra powers. Yusuke just wins. He just stomps. And that's how I take it.
Okay, well, good debate. It was a long one.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah, it's okay.
Alright,
anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, well, I guess, you know what? Yeah, thanks for having the debate with me. It was really cool. Was fun. Sorry it took so long, but hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, have a good day, man.
Okay, yeah, you too.
Alright, ciao.